Good morning. John Cater. I'm the Division Administrator for Federal Highway here for the Colorado Division.
I'm Ann Rajeski from the Colorado Association of Transit Agencies.
Good morning, Shaq Powers, Southwest TPR.
Holly Williams, Vice Chair, Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments.
Jared Verner, Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments.
Todd Cottrell, Program Manager with Dr. Cog, representing in place for Jacob Rieger.
Greg Mills, Mayor Brighton, also representing Dr. Cog.
Good morning, I'm Tom Galzarowski. I'm the chair of the new chair of the Intermountain TPR.
Morning, I'm Dana Wood. I'm with Northwest Colorado Council of Governments and I admin the Intermountain TPR.
Good morning, Eva Cosa-Leon, Polo Area Council of Governments.
Good morning, Brian Blasey, South Central TPR.
Good morning, Mitchell Wardell, South Central TPR Chairman.
Brian Cirkvenik, Northwest TPR.
Michelle Nauer, Vice Chair of the Gunnison Valley TPR.
Elizabeth Relford, Executive Director, North Front Range MPO.
Bill Jenkins, alternate NFR MPO.
Marissa Gahan, CDOT, Multimodal Planning.
Annie Alford, CDOT Region 5.
Bill Von Hanks, Planning Liaison.
Michelle Haynes, Gunnison Valley TPR.
My name is Matt Muir. I work for a 501c3 nonprofit.
Michael Snow with the Division of Transportation and Development.
Tim Book, CDOT Region 5 Planner.
Guthrie, Region 2 Planner.
Brett Hurst, CDOT VTD Freight.
Brett Murdoch, CDOT Region 1 Planning.
If you want to go into the kitchen here and help yourself to the hot water that comes out of the spout from the coffee. Thank you.
Aaron Busto, Federal Highways.
Okay, I'm not sure how to do the online ones. Looks like we got quite a few on there. I'll try to read these. John Lasota with Pikes Peak.
Hello.
John, they're moving around on me. So, yeah, we might just have a list of people for those.
Maybe just ask if there's any voting members.
Yeah, I guess TPR or MPO members.
Yeah, Vern Hersink, Alamos County Commissioner and San Luis Valley TPR Chair.
Sue Hansen, Gunnison Valley TPR Chair.
Dana Bursick, Grand Valley MPO Director, and I have to leave for about an hour for a final design meeting, but Rachel Peterson is on and will be covering while I'm gone.
Okay, thank you. Any other TPRs or MPOs on? Okay, not seeing any. Saw one more walk in.
Mr. Chair, this is Wendy Pettit. Ted Hernandez from PACOG is on as well.
Polo City Council, Ted Hernandez. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Gonzalez, Southeast TPR.
Okay. And for some of the TPRs, there are a few more seats at the main table if anyone want to move up here for the main meeting. Okay, thank you everyone for attending. Just a quick note for the election that's later in the meeting. They will be doing that using a QR code with our phones to vote. So just be aware of that after the break when we do the elections, that we will be using QR codes for voting. So, thank you. Okay, up next is public comment. And I believe we had one person with comments. Were they online or okay, there it is.
Is this okay? Chair Beebe, Director, staff. My
He's
name
not
is
on.
Matt Muir. There, that's a light, isn't it? Okay. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Aaron. My name's Matt Muir. I work for Coalition for Cyclists. We're a nonprofit whose work is based in Boulder County. In consultation with CDOT staff, I'm here to propose to the committee that at its convenience, it deliberate the formation of a statewide active transportation committee as indicated in the active transportation plan and similar to a freight or transit committee. The purpose of this is to improve outcomes in maintenance, safety, and mode choice. That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
This mic's still on, Aaron. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the April meeting minutes that were presented by email. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April meeting.
Holly Williams, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a
Brian
second?
Cervenic, second.
Okay, Brian, second. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Transportation Commission report. They met on April 15th and 16th. The workshops were actually kind of a shorter meeting this month or last month. They had another joint meeting with the Transportation Commission and CTIO, again, looking at the Mustang funding. And then they also had a joint service workshop for the rail program that's being developed for the Front Range and Mountain Rail programs. Then they had a condemnation authority request that they went through that process again for some more condemnations. They had the 10-year plan workshop on the 10-year plan, which we'll be reviewing later here to make a recommendation for adoption at the May meeting. And they had the budget workshops for the budget amendments and supplements. Again, there was an amendment for some of the Mustang funding to keep it operating. And then also some of the savings from lack of snow this year that they're going to put toward fire mitigation along some of the state highways and the high fire risk areas to try to help give fire breaks if we have any wildfires, especially in the mountains. And then they had a bridge and tunnel enterprise budget workshop. A couple of the highlights on that was the Eisenhower Tunnel lighting project that's going to be moving forward. Red Cliff Bridge, which is the iconic historic bridge. Project on it for some design. State Highway 348 bridge replacement. And then also an I-76, 2 bridges, and a US 160 project. So were the ones that were presented in the bridge and tunnel budget supplements. That was the main highlights from the commission meeting, workshops, and meeting. I don't know if anybody with staff has kind of any update on the Mustang, CTO, any updates on where that's kind of at for the funding?
I think you covered it, Chair. I think they'll probably continue those discussions later on, probably not at the May meeting, but later on during the summer and throughout the year.
Okay. All righty. Any questions for a commission meeting or information? Seeing none, we'll move on to our transit update from Ann. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We haven't had a track meeting since the last time we met. I have a couple just FYIs for you. The first one is the Casta Spring Training Conference is in Boulder next week. And if there's any sessions you or any of your team would like to attend, let me know. It's not too late to register, and you can register just for one day, or if you want to drop into one session, let me know. We can make that work out. The second thing I wanted to mention is that yesterday was the first 5311 formula looking at the formula. I lost the right word, I'm sorry, but the meeting was yesterday. We had a really nice spread of rural agencies. 5311 is rural transit funding, general public rural transit funding. And so we had a nice group of agencies from different types of rural communities, different sizes, and different parts of the state. So that's a really good start. There was a lot of good discussion, and I think it's going to go well and be really meaty and come out with a good product that will be valuable.
Good. And I would encourage TPR and MPO representatives to make sure they're interacting with those groups to help keep that coordination with the overall plans and those programs, because they are very important to our regions. So, thank you. Freight advisory. I attended the Freight Advisory Committee meeting on the 8th of April. They had a good turnout there. Some of the main topics, they had a presentation on the fuel impact enterprise update, and how that's looking at ways to improve things for the movement of some of the fuels with that funding. And I gave an update on what STAC had been doing. They had an update on the Front Range passenger rail. And then some of their subcommittees, their sustainability environmental committee. It's talked about Senate Bill 21, which is a scrappage replacement bill, which would help fund replacement of older semi trucks to newer ones that are more fuel efficient and less polluting. That's a bill that would give funding to have a program for that. Had a brief mention on EPA new guidance on DEF requirements for trucks and heavy equipment. And then the statewide medium and heavy duty charging hubs was another item that they're looking at, trying to figure out how to make sure those are developed over the long term for those needs. Then the mobility committee talked about heavy haul permitting and oversize, overweight, trying to figure out how to coordinate between state to state for the oversize, overweight as they come into our state and out of the state, and making sure those routes can match up and don't run into issues as those loads come in and out of the state and through our state. And then rail committee, the commission had approved the MUTCD supplement. I can't remember the terminology for that now off the top of my head.
For what supplement, sorry?
The MUTCD, the rail.
Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices, there we are. They had a update on that. And then some of the other just comments and things through the meeting was there are projects that the freight industry really would like to see try to be addressed for some of the bridge crossings, low clearance bridges. Some of those, one of the big ones that always shows up is like the Spear overpass on I-25. It's low clearance, makes it difficult and does cause bridge strikes and things once in a while. So trying to figure out how to have freight engage with the planning process to try to make sure that some of these high risk bridges and crossings and things are addressed to help meet the statewide freight needs. There there was one in Denver, I can't remember the location, that was also mentioned that they've been really struggling trying to get an area that's really an issue to be addressed. So would encourage the TPRs to engage and the MPOs to engage with the freight industry. And that's one of the goals of the group, is to try to make sure that those issues can be brought forward. Through the planning process and funding and all those, we can try to make sure the system's kept safe and managed in a good way on some of these structures that aren't really up to the full standards we need today. So I think that's the highlights of that meeting. And they were glad to be having that interaction with STAC. So we'll try to continue that. So, any questions on freight advisory? Okay. Not seeing any. TPR reports. Go through a roll call on that one. Central Front Range.
Leo Evans here.
Okay. Give us your update.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we're doing our updates.
We met in April. We had our quarterly meeting. We met at the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. Just regular agenda items, did not have any action items or any big motion at the meeting. Working through all the legislative updates and kind of taking the committee's position on those and trying to get feedback back over to CDOT from our level on those. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Grand Valley.
So we had a board meeting last week and approved our 2027 to 2030 TIP and had some other action items on there related to transit. We also had our Cycle Safety Fest on April 18th, and that went really well. We had estimated about 1,400 attendees. We combined it with a car show that was put on by the Mesa County Crime Stoppers group, and had Motorcycle Safety Foundation, had a semi truck with motorcycles you could climb in to understand blind spots, and did a lot of great safety outreach there with our bike rodeo and other interactive activities. That went really well, and also thanks to CDOT for sending folks out to do some e-bike education at that event. We also presented to FHWA. They had the administrator and deputy administrators here in Grand Junction, so had a chance to share some of the work we're doing here in the safety realm. So appreciate that opportunity. And then we are working on the final design for the mobility hub. So that's been a long process, but seeing progress on that as well. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Greater Denver.
Yeah, the latest, here's from the latest Dr. Cog board meeting, which we met on April 18th. We adopted the 2026 through 29 transportation improvement policy amendments. We also adopted the project funding recommendations for the Human Services Transportation TIP set aside and FTA section 5310. We adopted project funding recommendations for the livable centers TIP set aside. Also adopted amendments to the 24 through 27 transportation improvement set aside policy document. And we adopted a resolution to expand our MPO boundary, which will include the entire geographies of Clear Creek and Gilpin counties. Also, we adopted the Power Ahead Colorado Initiative pilot program policy. And we also discussed and took many positions on several legislative issues. Thankfully, they end next week. And that is it.
Okay. Thank you. Gunnison Valley.
Good morning, everybody. Recognizing that we met on the 30th of April and had a pretty robust meeting, recognizing that we have some new members and needed to do some 101 training. So we had some updates from Heather Carlson on the LTAP program, Front Range Community College, sort of opportunities for folks to get training, scholarships, and help with any kind of learning opportunities like that. That was really useful. We talked about the TAP program. NASA Birmingham did a presentation on a safe routes to school. It was really more of an educational meeting because many of us have not been familiar with this program, all the programs involved that are available to our community. So it was very helpful to have that information. So special thanks to Phil Hake and Tim Funk for orchestrating some of those opportunities for us. And we also had our legislative update, which is always exciting to hear. So I second whoever just said we're glad that the session's ending. And I think that does it for the Gunnison Valley TPR. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Intermountain. Oh.
Thank you. We met for a quarterly meeting on April 3rd. It was somewhat of a lighter meeting for us. We went through legislative updates, project updates, which we're excited about. It's the start of construction season in the mountains, so a lot of great projects getting underway, continuation of Vail Pass, beginning of the Exit 203 project in Frisco on I-70, which is really great to see. And then we had the chair election. Brian Pettit, who's with Pitkin County, is retiring. And Brian has been involved with the Intermountain TPR for 30 years, maybe over 30 years. So we're very grateful for all of the work that he's done and the years that he served as chair. And he seems very happy to be retiring and riding off. So I was elected. I'm here now, and I'm excited for this. I've represented the town of Eagle at the Intermountain TPR for 20 years. I also worked at Summit County Government and was involved with the TPR there. So a lot of experience, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. North Front Range.
Right. At the April 2nd meeting, the NFR MPO Planning Council approved the fiscal year 26-27 UPWP amended fiscal year 26 budget, the 2025 TMO call for projects funding recommendations, and reaffirmed the NFR MPO transit representative on the NFR MPO Planning Council as Johnny Olson, Greeley City Council member, with Loveland Mayor Patrick McFall as the alternative. At the same meeting, the Planning Council discussed the active transportation plan, as well as a presentation from Sal Pace, General Manager of the Front Range Passenger Rail District, on the progress of the project. The NFR MPO had its quadrennial MPO certification review on April 29th, and the certification report will be completed in mid-June. And then finally, and excitingly, the May 5th Air Quality Enterprise meeting, at that meeting, the application submitted by the NFR MPO and the PPACG to host the Ozone Exchange Conference this fall was approved for funding. That'll be October 26th through the 28th at the ranch. You can simply Google Ozone Exchange Conference and you'll see several links come up. There is a virtual town hall that will be held on May 15th, and there's a link on the website to register for that virtual town hall. And then abstracts are due June 23rd. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Northwest.
All right, we had our meeting a week after the last STAC meeting. The big topic was MMOF funding and distribution. We have $114,000 left, and we had two projects requesting $114,000. So it was, do we choose Oak Creek or do we choose Grand Lake, or do we split them? Well, a couple weeks before that decision, we found out that the town of Walden was going to be returning their $950,000 award in MMOF funding from years ago. And so not only did we grant both Oak Creek and Grand Lake their $114,000 requests, now we have all this extra money. So it's a really good problem to have. So we're going to be putting out a call for projects for Northwest TPR, 5 counties, set for June 26th. So that's the big news in the Northwest. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Pikes Peak.
Okay, Pikes Peak. So first of all, it seems like we may have skipped Grand Valley, so we'll have to go back to them. Let's see. We adopted our regional certified safety action plan, and this month we're going to adopt a new tip next Wednesday on our agenda on the projects that I know are going on. I-25 is looking a lot better around Garden of the Gods. We're going to have a couple closures, and then the Fillmore Bridge between Garden of the Gods and Fillmore, it's getting a lot better. I drive that nearly every day. The bridge over the west entrance to Peterson Air Force Base is starting to look really good. The first day they had a traffic lane shift, it was a little bit upsetting to folks, and but it's starting to look really good there. I just drove I-25 all the way out to, I-70 all the way out to Utah. So I got to go up Floyd Hill. Fascinating, really fascinating. I should have just pulled off the side of the street and looked and spent, a good hour watching it, and did nearly run into a pothole in one spot. So I thought, well, I should have had my text message ready, but I can't text and drive at the same time. So that was near, well, that was somewhere after Glenwood Canyon and Rifle. So just to let you know, but it's always fun to drive up I-70 through the mountains, my favorite drive. And that's it for Pikes Peak. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We did have Grand Valley. Yeah, she was online.
I'm sorry, I fell asleep. I do apologize. Too early in the morning for me.
Thanks for checking though, because I'm trying to keep my notes so I don't miss it. So thank you. Pueblo area.
Well, I'm happy to report that the Medal of Honor Boulevard is finally open. It opened April 10th, and that is, a big deal for us. That's a new roadway that connects Pueblo West to Pueblo, and we jokingly say that it's a toll road because people go so fast on there, and now the state troopers just hang out there and are pulling people over. So if you decide to use that, please use the speed limit. We also adopted our 2050 LRTP finally, woohoo! And we also started our first phase of public engagement for our update for our bicycle and pedestrian master plan. Thank you.
Thank you. San Luis Valley.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. We haven't met as a TPR since our last STAC meeting. We do meet the 28th of this month. So not a lot to report. We've got a couple of bridge resurfacing projects going on in the valley and in around Salida. First one, I guess, is here in Alamosa on the 160 bridge in a week or so. So keep that in mind if you're traveling this direction. End of report.
Thank you. South Central.
Good morning. We met on April 23rd in Trinidad. Just regular business items, and we also had an update from CDOT on the MMOF funding. So we're just waiting on the long bill to, well, I guess it passed, but just to find out where we're at with the MMOF funding. The construction has begun on exit 14 off I-25 in Trinidad, so that'll be exciting for the city of Trinidad. Also, the repaving project on US 160 west of Walsenburg is still ongoing, and it's set to be completed in September 26. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Southeast, Stephanie.
Yes, thank you. We had our TPR meeting. It was held April 22nd. Our discussion centered around, of course, review of the MMOF, good legislative updates. Initiative 175 was pretty robust discussion. And we discussed the Highway Safety Improvement Program, and then, of course, had updates on local and regional projects. Our region, through the Thriving Communities Program, has last year, at the end of last year, we applied for a regional safety action plan through the Safe Streets for All. We did not get awarded, but we have decided as a region to reapply. That's all I have. Our next meeting is July 22nd.
Thank you. Southern Ute, is anybody on?
Good morning, Mandy Brown. We have no updates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Southwest.
Yeah, we haven't met since February, so we have no updates at this time.
Thank you. Upper Front Range.
Yes, good morning. Nothing really exciting to report. Next meeting is report.
Okay, thank you. Ute Mountain.
Good morning. Thank you. Bernadette Cutt here. I am standing in for Brendan Adams. He is out of the office today. So for those of you that know me, I am the Director of Planning and Development for the Ute Mountain Tribe, also responsible for the transportation as well for Ute Mountain. So I have a few updates to kind of give you. So we are actively working with CDOT on the San Juan Bridge Scour project. They are in the remediation efforts, and the remediation will happen in fall. And also we have been working with KLJ for near finalizing the traffic safety plan. There was a couple of intersections that were particularly needing. One is the US 491 Mike Wash Road turn. There was a couple of accidents there. So, and also the intersection in White Mesa, we've been working with UDOT on that, but it's included in the traffic safety plan as well. So with UDOT, we are finalizing a pedestrian crosswalk. They will be going to construction here soon on that, so which is good news for them. We are also working, we have hired selected Wilson and Company to work on the Ute Mountain Ute Tribes long-range transportation plan for the next 5 years, the plan. So that's pretty much what I have. So thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. For Eastern, my district, we have not had a meeting. We're just looking forward to the few construction projects that'll be gearing up in our area. And there's still the concern about especially the 385 corridor that's having extreme heavy freight traffic with the wind and solar and battery storage facilities that are all being built out there for the large industrial projects of getting those built. In addition to, in my area by Lyman, we're also being repowered, some that are only 15 years old. They're repowering earlier than they originally scheduled. So we're getting all new blades, nacelles, and things. So a lot of extra freight coming into the Eastern District, trying to address the power supply issues and all the new development and large projects that take a lot of freight. So trying to work on those projects. So other than that, not much else for my district. Federal partners, federal highways, John?
Yeah, thank you. So one thing to mention, Secretary Duffy announced an initiative a couple weeks ago called Freedom to Drive, and it's a focus on congestion and bottleneck relief and so forth. So be more to come, but essentially it's going to be focusing on selected projects in each state, 2 to 5, and then kind of focus on what can be done in each of those locations to reduce congestion and improve traffic flow, and hopefully make traffic flow better. So that's an initiative at the national level. And then Dana mentioned we did have our so Federal Highway, we have, we're divided up into the country into 4 parts. And so we're in the western region. And so we had our annual meeting where we bring together the leadership from all 13 Western states. We had that in Grand Junction here last week and had a great event. Dana and Rachel came over and talked about their safety initiative, and really good for folks around the country to hear what's going on safety-wise here. We had our national leadership here, so and showed off Colorado very well, I think. So yes, last week was a very busy week, but a very successful week, and it was great to show off what's going on here in Colorado. So back to you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody with Federal Transit? Molly?
Good morning. Emma Belmont is here with Federal Transit Administration, but I don't have any additional updates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that concludes all of our TPR and representative updates. Okay, is Emily Hadaway on for legislative report? Or is she busy?
Yes, I am
There we go.
on. Hi, sorry for not being on camera, but
You're fine.
thanks everyone for having me. Yes, we are in the tail end of session, so a lot to come in the next few days. I think everyone is tracking the developments around Multimodal Options Fund, but I just wanted to kind of recap where everything landed. There were 2 bills that were floating around. They're orbital bills that accompany the long bill that were modifying the Multimodal Options Fund. They were both bills that are not related, that did not come from the governor's budget or recommendations from CDOT. They were JBC decisions, but the first bill was to eliminate the general fund transfer to the Multimodal Options Fund. There was significant pushback on that idea. There was amendments in both the House and Senate to try and limit that elimination to only 1 year. And the governor's office had also submitted a comeback on that as well. The ultimate decision the JBC made was to limit the elimination to 3 years. So that means for the next 3 years, unless a bill passes next year or in the following years, there will be no general fund transfer to the Multimodal Options Fund. And then after 3 fiscal years, that will hopefully resume unless something else changes. There was also a bill that accompanied that decision that adjusts the allocation of the Multimodal Options Fund from the state receiving 15% to the state receiving 30%. That was also a decision. It was actually a recommendation or proposal made by Rep. Taggart to try and limit the impacts of the elimination of the general fund transfer from not worsening the deficit that the busing program has now that the pilot program is concluding. So those decisions is kind of where everything ended up and will be what's accompanying the long bill. And what is, those decisions have already wrapped up. They haven't been officially signed by the governor, but that's how the legislature landed on Multimodal Options Fund. I do think a lot more discussion will come in the next few months about what reconciliation looks like, how we approach these changes. So I will definitely defer more to DTD on those discussions, but wanted to make sure we were transparent about where everything landed in the legislature around MMOF. Let's see, other bills that are kind of moving through the mix. Our statutory cleanup bill had a few amendments. Last week, we added some provisions that were requested from DOR and CSP. There was some chain law clarifications. We also added clarification that the non-attainment enterprise under CDOT has the ability to own assets and undertake projects, which is the same language that is under the BTE statute and the CTIO statute. It just was not replicated under the NATME statute, so we wanted that additional clarity. And then, a few other provisions. And so that is up for concurrence in the House today. So that will be the final process of that bill. It's HB 1076, Transportation Statutory Cleanup. Our other agency agenda item, traffic safety modifications, has also, that passed a while ago. So that one has already moved to the governor's desk. It hasn't officially been signed yet, but that was one that we were very supportive of and had included some of our concepts that originated within the agency. We no longer have any bills on our opposed list. We do have one bill we've been engaging on around autonomous trucks. That one was just amended today, so we're tracking that one closely. We are also engaging on the autonomous vehicle or autonomous, oh my gosh, I get the two autonomous bills confused. The speed camera bill, SB 152, that adds some kind of more guardrails around speed cameras. So we have gotten some changes into that bill. And then I think the biggest thing that was a development from Friday is a bill was introduced in the House, HB 1430, transportation funding adjustments. That is a bill that was introduced by Rep. Basenecker and Rep. Sirota, as well as Senator Amabile and Senator Lindstedt in the Senate, that would only take effect if Initiative 175 were to pass the general election this year. They are thinking proactively of the budget deficit that would take effect January 1st of 2027 if that measure passed, and how they can proactively balance the budget, since likely a special session would need to be called to figure out how to balance the budget for an initiative that takes effect on January 1st, 2027. So the concept is that if the initiative passes, which has the risk of reallocating up to $700 million of general fund and cash funds away from the general fund and other agencies to transportation, then a series of measures kick in, including eliminating the Treasury payment to the 267 debt payments. That's $100 million from the general fund that would open up and then would be backfilled by the new revenue generated from 175. Eliminating the general fund transfer to the Department of Transportation that was created in SB 260. So that's the $100 million transfer that CDOT receives. That would be replaced as well with 175 revenue. And then adjusting a variety of fees and taxes, the excise tax, the road usage fee, and some registration fees, to lower those fees for 3 years to make room under the Tabor cap to then make more general fund available to ensure that K-12 and Medicaid don't face significant cuts. And the reason that they've been saying K-12 and Medicaid is just because those two items under the state budget, each one accounts for about a third of the state budget. So it's just, it's hard for them to envision where there could be additional cuts besides those bigger pots of the pie. And so that's something that we were available for questions on, oh gosh, it's Thursday, on Tuesday, to answer questions about the fiscal note. It hasn't been something that I've been actively lobbying on or anything too much like that. But it is a bill that the governor's office is supporting, and there's a lot of folks in the legislature that are supportive of it too. So happy to answer any questions about that. I think the biggest thing to make clear is that if the measure if 175 did pass and 1430 did pass, the way that the measure is set up is that it would hold transportation harmless to the funding levels that are currently anticipated. So it wouldn't reduce funding. It would just hold those levels harmless. So I know it's very complicated, and I'm sorry I don't have slides or visuals because I know it's just a lot to go through, but happy to answer any questions on that one as well. So I think with that, those are the big the big updates. It's just going to be an interesting push to until Wednesday, but happy to answer questions.
See John Lasorda has your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, Emily, not so much a question, but a request. Just because I don't apparently know when to just leave well enough alone. Since my request is about the MMOF. Since the budget has not been signed, and because the governor does have a line item veto power, could I request, and I think there might be several folks that would agree with me, but again, I don't want to take us down a long discussion, that maybe CDOT leadership look at the doubling of the state MOF at a time when, for at least 3 years, half of the MMF is going away, and saying, look, what's the best way as transportation people, this money is spent? Urban to urban bus connectivity versus urban where the people are every day. That's multimodal, that provides funding for bicycles and sidewalks and other sorts of things. MMF's a good thing, and it really does sting when we lose it, especially when we move it off to one thing. So if you guys could maybe huddle a little bit and say, yeah, if you're fine with it, that's fine. But if maybe you say, yeah, there is a better way of spending these dollars, and someone whisper in the governor's ear and say, hey, can you go ahead and line item veto that? Because again, it doesn't impact the budget. The budget does not have to be redone. It's just, it goes back to the local source that it was before. So that's it for me in my soapbox. I'll climb on down now. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and we can circle up on that recommendation after the call. So thank you for your notes on that.
Any other comments online or questions? Tom.
Thank you. I had a question about the MMOF changes as well. The second bill that was described that changes the allocation to the state, would that be for a 3-year period, or would that be a permanent change in allocation?
The bill is drafted to be a permanent change. That I think maybe was just an oversight of the JBC, since they limited the 3 years and didn't go back and limit the other one. I think if that was limited to 3 years, we would be fine with that. And that could be something that could be discussed in future years. I think how that everything kind of ended up with the first bill that eliminated the general fund transfer is that it had to go to a conference committee because 2 amendments were adopted on the floor to limit that to limit the elimination of that transfer. So that was sent to a conference committee, and the other bill was not sent to a conference committee because there were no amendments to it on the floor. So there wasn't an opportunity to change it through the legislative process. But I do think that there's opportunities to look at that in the future and continue those discussions, because I don't think that was the JBC's intention. It certainly wasn't our intention to try and make that a permanent change if the general fund transfers resume.
Thank you. I think that's quite concerning to all of the local agencies and TPRs who very much appreciate the availability of MMOF funding. And this starts to feel like some pretty dramatic cuts to that funding, at least what's available to local agencies. So I would hope that there, would encourage there to be at least a cap on that change in allocation that matches the duration of the general fund transfer reduction. I appreciate your expression that it's probably unintentional, that it wasn't meant to be permanent, but it sounds like it is, and hopefully that could be corrected.
Other questions? Elizabeth?
All right, I won't hit on MMOF. I'm somewhat interested in just hearing CDOT's position on the transportation funding adjustments, the 1430 House bill. Since 1997 that I can speak to, CDOT has been messaging that our state gas tax at 22 cents a gallon is not enough to really fund transportation in our state, and has made a lot of efforts, especially with Senate Bill 260, to try and increase the revenues for our state. So I'm somewhat interested in CDOT's position on how this bill is going to reduce our 22 cents per gallon gas tax to 14 cents per gallon, and how your messaging kind of works with that, considering you've been messaging pretty much my whole entire career that our state gas tax isn't enough to fund our state.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I mean, I think I'll first say that we are, one agency operating under the governor's office with having to look at a collective of another 20 agencies under the state budget. And so this is initiative that the administration is supportive of, which means all the agencies are supportive of. And part of our role is being a team player and looking at the full budget of, how can we ensure that all state services are funded in a way that is as adequate as we can, given the immense budget shortfalls that everyone is facing. I think I would concur that the state gas tax is not as high as it could be compared to other states. But I also know that we're operating under an interesting budget environment with Tabor, which is a different implication than other states have. And under this measure, general fund, under 175, general fund would be swept to transportation, meaning that there would not be that $500 million of revenue available for other key services under the state. And so if that revenue is not available, the governor's office and the state legislature are just thinking of ways of how can we make that room under Tabor, because we know we're collecting enough general fund, but it's being pushed out through the Tabor mechanism of the refunds. And so if we lower the gas tax, that's less tax exempt, or that's less revenue collected under the cap that allows more general fund to be available, so that those cuts to K-12 and Medicaid might not be as robust. And so that's a difficult position that they're in. I can definitely understand where they're coming from. I don't think that means that we believe the gas tax should be at 14 cents permanently by any means. It just means that we're operating under a very interesting budget environment that has a lot of different considerations. But Jeff, I don't know if you want to chime in, or Herman, anyone else on the team that wants to take a crack at that one.
Yeah, no, I think that was well said. I think we would agree there is a need for transportation funding, but I think Emily stated it well that there's needs across the entire state budget, and it's a very difficult budget environment right now. I think the main thing that I think we've been concerned about with this measure was just making sure that CDOT was held harmless, and so I think that is the way it was designed. So that if the ballot measure moves forward and if this measure passes and then is subsequently implemented, we would see essentially a net neutral impact on our revenue. And so, yes, I think we agree there's a need for additional funding. This is a challenging time for that, but I think as a baseline, we wanted to make sure that we were not losing, and I think the way that this measure was designed, it is to be net neutral.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Emily? Okay, not seeing any. We'll move on to the federal legislation update with Jamie.
Morning all. Happy National Hug Week. So to those who celebrate. My updates probably for the next couple months are actually going to be somewhat short. We don't think we're going to get a reauthorization this year. I know, just hold your gasps of shock. everyone is in just complete amazement that that is not going to happen this year. So there's just a lot going on at the congressional level. One of the biggest things that I've alluded to, but seems to probably have more of an impact than we have talked about, is this is an election year. The election politics and the election numbers across the country are changing rapidly as different states pursue different redistricting efforts. So the control of Congress, the control of the Senate is very much up in the air. And so reauthorization has sort of taken a back seat. I think I mentioned this in my update last month. We haven't passed, or the country hasn't passed, the Congress hasn't passed a reauthorization on time ever, really. So this isn't that much of a shock. We don't exactly know what the short-term what the continuing resolutions or the stopgap measures will be to continue surface transportation authorization. We'll keep an eye on those kinds of things. But I think I can stop saying we're expecting to see reauthorization next week. We're pretty sure that that's not going to happen. I think Sam Graves, who is the chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, he has announced his retirement from Congress. And I really did think he was going to be able to push through some sort of draft bill, but there's just too many other things going on. And so an unnamed source within the White House said that they thought there was a less than 3% chance that we would get a reauthorization bill this Congress. So those aren't great numbers. But who knows? Maybe next month I will come to you and we'll have a draft, but I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll keep an eye on what reauthorization looks like moving forward, what these short-term measures are to continue transportation funding at the federal level. And I'll just let you know. With that said, please also make sure to celebrate the International Beaufort Scale Day, which is how we measure wind. So, Beaufort Scale Appreciation Day. Anyway, thanks so much. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay.
There's always a chance, John. There's always a chance.
Any questions for Jamie? Comments? Okay, not seeing any. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, but would you want to explain how the voting will work for elections? Maybe we can take the break after the explanation so people can get the QR code.
Okay. Right, so we're going to do our
So while Aaron's getting that up, the elections for chair and vice chair are required under our bylaws. The chair and vice chair are required, can serve 2 terms. The terms are for 2 years. Currently Chair Beatty and Vice Chair Williams are not term limited, so they can run again for another term. It is highly encouraged that the chair and vice chair not be from we have a different representation from our TPRs and MPOs. So we have a urban and rural representation, if at all possible, based on who is wanting to run. So we wanted to have that open. So we'll, once Aaron gets everything going and we come back from the break, we'll take nominations. Folks will be able to say why they're running. And then we'll do votes on the who would like to run for chair and vice chair.
Yeah, thank you, Darius. So I believe this is the link that we're using for the STAC chair and vice chair elections. So if you click with your phone and go to this link, it'll give you the option to help me out, Spencer.
Sure. So everybody is gonna be able to put in their TPR MPO, only one vote. Thank you. Only one, sorry. So everyone's going to be able to put in their TPR and MPO, only one vote per representative. And there's a STAC chair and STAC vice chair option. So right now, there are no names on here because there have been no nominees yet. But as those nominees come in, I'm going to fill in this form and then people will be able to vote.
All right. And that just gets us set up so folks have time over the break to think about that. And then we'll redo. Well, Darius, will you do the formal announcement of or will we formally announce the nominees?
Yeah, I think we'll take formal nominations and then we'll put those in, we'll do the votes, so on and so forth after we come back with the break with your permission, Chair.
That's what I was intending. So
All right.
we can get loaded up and then we can start the election process after a break. So we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break and everybody can get logged in and take your break.
Yeah.
Why we're not getting things to display as normal. I think we usually set this up so that this has extended displays between here and then the room's video has another display. That way, when you or I are doing stuff here, it's not showing the room and it's not showing the streaming and all that. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
So what would we change?
Well, I think it's a matter of moving the video conference. Maybe you know how to do this, Ricky. Extend the displays here so that when we're doing stuff here, people don't see us hitting the buttons and going in and out of windows and so forth. We don't want to display all that.
Oh, just put the displays on these?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so.
And then since for some reason, even though the front camera is working here, it does not feed through the system. We cannot get it to go to Zoom or to YouTube.
Oh, it's not feeding at all?
So we're thinking we'll just turn it off completely if we can.
Oh, okay.
And we'll move a computer to the table so we can push the owl a little further to the middle of the room.
Okay.
And we'll do just owl system.
Okay, yeah, I
that
put in a
possible?
service request. Yeah, so we'll just feed it through the owl system then, because
Okay.
that one's working. These, I don't know why the cameras are not working. I don't know. That's so weird. They were working yesterday.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a net? Just power and just the USB thing, that's all it needs.
Yeah. There we go. Okay.
Myself all the way down there.
Down there? Okay.
That do it?
Yeah, so this is so what's showing now is the displays are showing extended displays are showing the Zoom meeting, and then you can control things here differently. Is that what you wanted to do?
I'm not sure. Is that right? Is that what you wanted?
What's that?
I still don't see the auditorium, but that's the camera that's not working. The auditorium
Well, so you
camera.
can still share this to Zoom, right? So it'll
It's
pop
sharing
up there.
now.
But
So we
then
just need to
on
pull it
Zoom-
over.
On Zoom, we need to change this to the screen, I think, to the
Yeah.
to speaker or something like that, so that it shows the right person rather than just the whole gallery grid in there.
Oh, okay.
Does that
We
make
can
sense?
do that. We can do that.
And then you just share. You share from here. It
So the
should
Zoom would be
show
on that.
Oh,
There.
okay.
Yeah.
And then, oh, what is it? It's,
For the owl? Is that what it was?
no, for this one, is it speaker display? Not gallery, right? Speaker.
Or is there multi or I forgot. which one it gets
Multi-speaker?
set to.
Multi-speaker? Just speaker? Okay, cool. That'll work.
I think it'll then recognize the owl system.
Okay. I got the out volume. I got the out volume off because if you turn it on, it's
I'll
gonna.
do that. Yeah.
it'll
It'll kind of be like a
echo.
reverb background.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm hoping I use it. I'm glad I have it. Don't be mad if I don't. I am glad we have it. Okay, all right. Because folks, I may do it like this. No worries. Folks may still want me to. First up, what is first? First is the voting. Let's do that first.
That light is first, right?
Oh, it is.
You see it? Oh, there you go. Oh, I see what you're doing. All right, so then in here, you gotta go to your Zoom, to the Zoom. Yeah, how do we get to your Zoom settings now? Let's go. Is it to the left? All right, so this isn't showing your display, so multi-speaker? I just don't know Why doesn't it show what you're sharing now? Ah, so the Zoom.
Yeah, split it out.
Ah,
So it
okay.
shows what you're sharing right there.
Oh, okay, so that's the problem. So it's only gonna show. Oh, God. I don't. Why? Yeah, where's this share? Why isn't it? Why doesn't it share? Yeah, he wants to share this, which is what is currently being shared, but why doesn't it show on the screen in here? Oh, because that, we're just showing it, so that one's being pulled up, right? We're telling it, so this one's gonna be rain and those are the extended screens. So is that what it means? So you want? Yeah, but is the Zoom on the extended screen? Yeah, Zooms are on the extended screen. Okay, I don't know how to do this then. Because when I see the Zoom meeting over there, nobody can see what he's sharing. Oh. Like it's not actually sharing to Zoom screen for some reason? Maybe it is. Can we ask what they're saying? Yeah. So here you are see this? Sharing this, right? So they're seeing that. Yeah. Is that what they want to see? Yeah, but I don't know. For some reason, he's got this. This is not the shared screen. This is the actual document itself, and he's got it on this view. He should have it here instead, and be sharing it via Zoom so that people see the Zoom share. Because otherwise, when he does a presentation, it's going to be the same. Never mind. It's all right. I'm going to leave it this way. I'm just going to leave it this way and let him do it.
If everyone could head back to your seats so we can get started back.
Is it reload or is it?
Okay, it looks like we've got most everybody back, so we'll get started.
Okay. How the ballot is structured is we have a vote for both chair and vice chair on the same ballot. So we'll do the nominations for both. We will put that in and then we'll get started with the voting. So why don't we start off with nominations for chair for the STAC for the years of 2026 through 2027. Nominations for chair.
I would nominate Gary Beatty.
Is there a second for the nomination?
I'll second.
We have 2 seconds. So nominated by current Vice Chair Williams and seconded by the North Front Range and Southeast. Current Chair Beatty, is there any words that you would like to say?
I'd be glad to continue to serve as chair. I enjoy it. Trying to present the balanced representation for the whole group to commission and the work we do. So I think you all know me pretty well. So appreciate your support.
Are there any further nominations for chair of the STAC? Seeing none, unless there are any objections, we can close nominations for the chair. All right, opening nominations for vice chair of the STAC for the 2026-2027 term.
Holly Williams. I would like to nominate Kristen Stevens, Larimer County Commissioner. One, because she's not here today. So she's from North Front Range. I did think about her last month, Two, she also serves on the National Association of Counties Transportation Committee as one of our vice chairs. So she's really getting into the transportation sector. She's not term limited in her election office like I am. And she's just a pleasure to work with as a county commissioner. So I would nominate Kristen Stevens.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So nominated by current Vice Chair Williams, numerous seconds. I don't know if North Front Range wants to say anything about excuse me, she's chair on another board that I serve on, but talk about Commissioner Stevens.
I'll just say that she has, if she was elected, she would serve.
All right, very good. Is there any other nominations for vice chair at this time? I don't see any vice chair, so without any objections, we can close nominations. So with that, we have a slate.
Let's declare it by unanimous.
Yes, so with that, we have a slate of Gary Beatty of the Eastern TPR and Kristen Stevens from the North Front Range MPO for chair and vice chair for the next term. Is there any objections or for acclamation for them to serve for the next term for the next 2 years? Everybody, and I guess we can all say aye on that. Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Chair Beatty and Vice Chair Stevens.
Thank you. We'll let her know. She has another job.
All right, thank you. Continue to represent you. Thank you. Up next is our 10-year plan recommendation to the commission. We'll have Darius give the presentation on the 10-year plan update.
Thank you, Chair Beatty. This is, I believe, is going to be one of our final presentations on a draft 10-year plan. Of course, we're happy to give further conversations on the progress of the 10-year plan, and we're always talking about our planning cycles we go through. We will be providing updates on a quarterly basis, and then we update the plan periodically as we go through the life cycle of it. So if we want to go on to the next slide, please. Some quick technical issues here. There we go. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview of the development, where we have been, where we were, the action item with the actual plan, which should be in your packet that was sent out on Tuesday. And then some of the items that we'll talk about a little bit later and what you will see coming from staff as we execute the plan throughout the coming years. So if we want to go to the next slide. An overview of the plan, it is our strategic pipeline of projects, taking a look over the next 10 years and how we'll make strategic investments, our larger projects over the next decade, looking at the goals of fixing our roads, advancing transportation safety, and sustainably increasing transportation choices passed by the commission. And this was done in combination with the long range plan, as we call it, the 2050 statewide plan. And we're trying to emphasizing transparency, accountability, and performance with this plan. So I'm moving on to the next slide, please. These, of course, are the 3 goal areas and the performance measures that are helping measure the progress in these goal areas. And these, of course, are available. The current condition of these performance measures are available online at codot.gov and is updated on an annual basis if you would like to take a look at these. If we want to go to the next slide, please. So the first milestone was the adoption of the TPR regional transportation plans, was laid out what is the needs in each of the regions. And of course, MPOs had done their own plans as required under federal statute, and I believe it's 23 USC 135. If I got that incorrect, let me know. And we had various modal plans, such as the transit plan. We had our own active transportation plan. We had the freight plan that was passed. We had rail plans, asset management plans, resiliency, safety plans, the highway safety plan that was passed, numerous plans that all culminated into what I believe was the 2050 statewide plan, which we'll talk about in just a second. So all of this stuff, all of this engagement led to the development of not only the statewide plan, but also the 10-year plan and the projects that were chosen for it. Next slide, please. As part of that public engagement, we had numerous meetings, survey responses, outreach, but we had the telephone town halls with the commissioners. We had the public survey. We had the final public comment period as well as part of the 10-year plan process. Next slide, please. And the statewide plan, which sets out the framework of what the transportation system is looking like for the next 20 years. That was adopted by the commission in September of 2025. And that is now available online. And that led to the final development of the 10-year plan. We go to the next slide. And as part of that, we have, of course, the requirement for the greenhouse gas report for the non-MPO areas, which was required under 2 CCR 61-22. That was adopted by the commission in February 2026 for taking a look at reducing greenhouse gas emissions through our planning efforts, and that was met. And moving on to the next slide. Our 10-year plan was looking at projects that prioritize the goals, is able to move measurable progress towards some of those goals, and integrating the funding sources from our strategic funds. Next slide, please. And so taking a look at the 10-year plan, and all of these tables are available in the packet, as I mentioned before. At a high level, the planning totals for the projects that were chosen, we have a lot of projects that have been carried over from the last plan, but we have several new projects that have been adding to the pipeline. We're looking at annually about $225 million beginning in fiscal year 2027. So that starts on July 1st of this year. So that's around $900 million for the first 4 years of the prioritized plan, and then about $1.35 million in the remaining years, what we call the out years. So there are 8 administrative additions to the plan. These are projects that were expected to be completed, but were not completed from the old plan. So they are being added back in because they had not been completed. They have not been completed by by July 1st when they were expected to be completed. So we're adding them back in. It doesn't affect the plan, but noted they need to be a little bit more time before they're being completed. And so those are in the memo in the packet, which includes the Outriders improvements at Canyon City, Outriders improvements at Pueblo West, Colorado City Corners, Lamar, Fort Lyon, the Southwest G track improvements, raise grants, the Vail Intermodal Site, North Avenue Transit Infrastructure Projects, Harmony Road Park and Ride, Colorado 59 Sandy Creek Bridge Rehabilitation Project, and then at the request of CTIO, a no funding allocation line item for future consideration for enterprises to add funding for Mustang operations in the future. So those are the administrative additions to it. Again, doesn't affect any of the other projects, but do want to make that clear that those are the items that were added since the last time that had been presented back in February. But some of the other changes have been, as we're getting into construction season, funds that have been changed around for project savings on projects that have been completed, changes to estimated project costs. Those have all been incorporated as we've been working through this over the past few months, and those all been incorporated into the proposed 10-year plan as presented to you today. Next slide, please. And so what the recommendation before the STAC is seeking a recommendation of STAC members to the TC for the adoption of the 10-year plan. And this will set out the framework for the planning, for a planning total and development of the 10-year plan. So that way it can be put into the STIP budget development of these projects, and then being able to actually execute these projects over the next 4 years. Of course, this is a document that can be adjusted and reviewed as situations change. We will revisit this minimally to take a look at the second 4-year period when we get closer to the 31 period. But as projects have bid savings, as projects have different items that come up, we'll periodically bring things forward to the commission for approval through Policy Directive 703. And then anything else is outlined in that process as well. Additionally, one of the topics that we'll talk about later in the agenda today is what we learned through the well, kind of a lessons learned conversation that we'll start today and continue on there on how we can improve the planning cycle and what we talked about, what we did over the last couple of years and how we can improve for the next planning cycle, which includes the regional transportation plans, the 2055 plan, and all of those modal plans, because the work never starts once we stop. Once we stop one planning cycle and complete everything, then we have to start thinking about the next one. Next slide, please. I think this kind of reiterates what we had talked about. These are all the what can be amended mid-cycle. So if there's any addition or removal of a project, that will go forward to the Transportation Commission. And in any requests or modification of funds will need to go forward to the Transportation Commission again. And then authorization of the 10-year plan will allow it to be included in the STIP, and then the adoption of the budget is what actually authorizes the funds for use. And then we will begin the development and reprioritization of the next 4-year period, probably beginning in fiscal year 29. And then we have a robust change management process through our internal project and portfolio management system called PMWeb. And then the last slide, I believe, is just talking about how you can check on progress. So we have online available dashboards that we're working on updating with the new plan. So those are available at codot.gov. We have a quarterly 10-year plan report, which is the exact same as the tables that are in your packet now. We update those quarterly. The quarterly update that you'll see now will probably be what we present in July. That will probably be the first quarter update, and then another update in November, which goes into the annual budget submission. That's the next item. CDOT does present an annual project accomplishments report, which includes the items in the 10-year plan. And then a lot of our major projects, which includes many of the projects on the 10-year plan, have websites on codot.gov as well. Examples include like Floyd Hill. So the action we're asking today is for a recommendation for adoption to the Transportation Commission meeting that will happen later this month. But that is the end of the presentation that I have, and happy to answer any questions. But I think I want to end with, after visiting every TPR, talking with every MPO, want to thank you all for the experience over the last 2.5 years. And I think everything has mostly been positive. I think we've come up with a great product and a great plan on what we're able to do. I know there's a lot more that still needs to be done, but overall, thank you for being great partners, and we'll do it again here over the next couple of years. So I'll leave it at that and see if there's any questions folks have.
Okay, any questions, comments on 10-year plan? Okay, seeing none. I guess I'll just make a comment. The 10-year plan is just a portion of the funding that goes to projects. So I know our TPR, I had questions from people, and it's like, well, why aren't these all the other projects we had on our planning list listed there? And it's because of the funding limitations of the 10-year plan segment. So we all realize we need more on those. So I guess I would entertain a motion to recommend to the commission the adoption of the 10-year plan. at this point or not.
So moved, Holly Williams.
Is there a second? Thank you, Michelle. So it's been moved and seconded to recommend adoption of the 10-year plan to commission. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Region 1 is our featured region for presentation today.
Chair B, we have the AAA team from Region 1 here to give the Region 1 Featured Region of the Month presentation.
Thank you. Happy to be here. My name is Angie Drum. I'm the Region 1 Deputy Director for Traffic and Safety. And helping me with the presentation today is Alizar Tesfaye. He is the Region 1 Traffic Program Engineer. And then we also have Alvin Stamp. There's Alvin. He is a resident engineer with the Region 1 Traffic Program, hence the A-team reference. Okay, looks like we're pulling up the presentation. So we just wanted to take a little bit and talk about something perhaps that you don't normally hear from Region 1. I'm sure you've heard a lot about a lot of the big projects that we have going on. But we wanted just to take a moment to talk about sort of what we're doing in the region to address some safety issues that we have, particularly with vulnerable users. That's our bike and pedestrian group. Okay, so this is just an overview of what we'll be talking about today. We'll talk a little bit about the crash data that we have in Region 1, different approaches that we're using to address and to try to reduce these crashes. And those things are, like, we're doing a bike pedestrian study, we're using some technology. Of course, we're also using the lower tech solutions, and then just some of the challenges that we have, frankly, with all of these different things that we're trying. Next slide. Okay, so this is just, I wanted to provide a little bit of context for what we're seeing in the region. So the orange bar is sort of the statewide. So the top one is fatalities. This is over the last, I guess, 9 years or so. And then the blue is the Region 1 portion. And so it shouldn't really be, I guess, that much of a surprise that we are, the significant amount of the fatalities and serious injuries do occur in the Region 1 boundaries. You know, given the population, it's not really all that surprising. So we have about roughly, I'll just round up to about 40% of the statewide fatalities. And then for serious injuries, we have about 48% of the statewide serious injuries. Next slide. Okay, when we take a little bit closer of a look as for the bike and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries, we see a much, quite a bit of a bigger jump. So we have currently 57% statewide of the fatalities occur in Region 1. And then for serious injuries, we are at about 60%. So it is important to note that this is all roads that occur in Region 1. So that's, local streets and state highways, not just on the state system. Okay, next slide. Okay, then I'll pass it to Alizar to talk about our bike and pedestrian study.
Okay. Yes, the reason for this study was to move from reaction from crashes to being preventing them even before it happens. So the study includes all CDOT roadway within Region 1, and the purpose is to improve safety for people who are walking, biking on our roadways. So the idea is to reduce crashes, serious injuries, and fatalities for vulnerable road users. And our target is like high-risk locations, like crash data, where the crashes are happening, like a systemic risk, like are they prone to exposure, speed, or any gap in the facility, and later on to deliver prioritized fundable projects ready to design and construction. So next slide. So what we did is we use an innovative public engagement. It's like getting the data, not just the feedback. So we used a modern map-based community input we call MetroQuest. So based on survey, and we got about 2,300 participants, over 5,800 location-specific input. So that was identified what community prioritize hotspot where they feel unsafe. So we got really input. So we compiled that with our safety analysis so we can get a good location for this location. So we move beyond anecdote feedback, we align with the community concerns, and would help us good competitive project to get funding for it. Next slide. So with this, I think we came up with 5 prioritized locations. We designed, and right now, currently, they're ready to advertise. 6 project locations were already allocated funding and HSIP and faster funding. So they're ready to go to design phase. So this is pretty much our pipeline, not a study, pretty much pipeline for a project. So we use this a lot. So next slide. So with that, I'll pass to Alvin for our technology.
Thank you, Alessar. So looking into improve some of those areas for pedestrians and bicycles, we start looking for technology in order just to address some of those issues. Would you please play the video? And please pay attention to the video because there's a quiz after this. So, oh, it didn't play. That's okay. So I guess the main issue here is you can see the crosswalks, and the video was showing, you know, pedestrians going through the crosswalks, but in reality, there are other issues that we have for J crossings and other type of problems that we have with pedestrians. Next slide. All right, so we have a project, we got a grant for do a pilot project for testing new technology. So we were testing LiDAR detection, which is kind of shooting like beams of lasers and just getting back all the information that you get on once it hits an obstacle or an object. So what we did is just run the LiDARs in order just to understand what was the issue that we were having, or better understand the issues that we were having at these particular locations where we're having some of the crashes for rear ends and broadsides, and then a lot of issues with pedestrians and conflicts with vehicles. So running this technology and allow us to understand or better understand what we have here. So in this particular location, on every single approach, we have bus stops. So that's one of the main issues that this technology help us to understand why we have this type of problems. And if you go to the next slide, please. So the study that we run, it was just to understand the data, test it, and see that it was, we can use it for detection of pedestrians, bicycles, and as well as the vehicles. And more important than that, is start understanding where we can see with cameras, which was the first video. So this technology allow us to analyze and understand near misses events that we have at the intersection. So next slide, please. So as you might see, all the red dots and the blue dots on dark, those are crossings from pedestrians. The ones that you have on the left, on the north side of, or the top side of the picture, that's where we have one bus stop, and that's going east-west on 44th. And then you have the other bus stop on the other side, on the right side. And you can see how pedestrians are crossing all around the intersection, which is creating a lot of conflicts in between vehicles and pedestrians. So this technology is helping us to understand or better understand and get some for us to identify priorities and areas for safety improvements. And some of those, for instance, it helps us for to have, like, for instance, longer clearances on the signal timing, or for instance, implement protected left turns only or right turns only, so we can avoid some of those near misses. So that's kind of the beauty of the technologies, giving us the opportunity to understand and give us tools to better prevent some of those issues with pedestrian behaviors. Next slide. So some of the recommendations that we have is just to extend this on the longer corridors. Right now, we only have one location that it was the pilot test, that it was on Kipling and 44th. But we're looking into implement this on other corridors that they have high pedestrians volumes. So that this technology will help us to understand the trajectories of those pedestrians, better understand where they're crossing, and try and just give us tools in order to just prevent these type of problems. And with that, I give it to Angie.
Okay, now we're going to talk about some of our lower tech solutions that we have been implementing in the region. I would say one of the benefits of working in traffic is that we have our traffic engineering team and our traffic maintenance team that work closely together to look at solutions. And so, like, all of these items that I'm going to talk about, these were all implemented by our traffic maintenance team. So they are all done in-house, but with coordination with our traffic engineering folks. And so, you know, I think one of the more common things that you'll see, right, not just in Denver metro area, but all over, is the rapid rectangular flashing beacons, RRFBs. And so, right, that purpose is to just call attention to activity. So you have a pedestrian come up, they push the button, it starts to kind of, right, sort of do this flashing, right? So it alerts drivers that someone's there, someone's approaching, someone's attempting to cross the street. Like I said, it is I call that a lower tech solution, especially compared to some of the LiDAR and other technology things. But all of these things still have, right, a maintenance impact. And so it still requires work from our electricians to put them in. They do tend to get hit. And so there is no, shall I say, maintenance-free option that we're looking at. The next thing that we tried is these motion activated solar lights. And that's that picture in the middle. That's actually me standing under that light. This was done we tried this on Federal Boulevard right out here. And Federal Boulevard is a really, really big hotspot for pedestrian crashes. And at this particular location, this is a mid-block crossing. And you can imagine without that, how dark it is. And so we had a lot of incidents of people being hit or near misses at that location. So we worked with city and county in Denver just to try these out, right? There were solar lights. We kind of just wanted to see how they worked. And what we found was that they were actually quite effective during the summer months. And so what it did is as you approached, it sensed that motion and it became brighter. So, and then when it didn't sense motion, it was still lit, but at a lower, capacity. And then unfortunately, what we ended up finding out is in the wintertime, the battery just didn't last. But like, we tried it, and these were relatively low cost. I think they were like, I don't know, I want to say like about $4,000 per light. But in order to like sort of get the better battery, the cost jumped. And again, these are all like maintenance dollars that we're using. And so we just it was difficult to sort of justify that exponential cost at this time. But we're hopeful that technology will continue to evolve and that we'll find a solution that sort of fits our budget and lasts longer. Then the next two things I want to talk about are on the following slides. So if we could go to the next slide. And one of the other things that we use, they're called blank out signs. This is also on Federal, I believe, right? Federal 96. And so I know this is a daytime picture, so it doesn't quite, you can't quite see it, but so a pedestrian, approaches the intersection, they hit the walk, and the blank out. So when it is not activated, when the PED button is not activated, it's a dark sign. When the pedestrian activates it, pushes the PED button, it lights up, and we have it sort of lit up on all four corners. And the purpose of it is just to really alert the driver that there is a pedestrian, that there's someone there and they're waiting to cross. And the idea is that signals the driver, okay, be on the lookout. So we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alizar, but I feel like we have had some success with this, as particularly at this location. This was another area that we were seeing a lot of pedestrian hits. Next slide. Okay, pavement markings. Pavement markings are probably one of the things that we can easily do. Here on the left, you'll see what the before was. And then on the right is the after. And this is C470 in Broadway or University? University. And so here you'll see we did put in the RRFBs as well, but that crosswalk, it's a little bit of a different crosswalk than what you would normally see. And interestingly enough, it does, I guess, as a driver is approaching it, it gives this sort of weird sense of there's a bump. And so people actually slow down. It's just kind of this weird psychology thing with the driving. And so, this is all sort of more anecdotal. We are gathering sort of the history, the crash history to have more of a definitive result from this location. But these are all just things that we're trying, where the team is really great at, okay, here we have a problem. What are some other things that we may be able to do? And the next slide. Okay, so what are some of the challenges that we've had? Specific to the bike pedestrian study and projects, what we have found is it was great to develop this list of projects. But then what we discovered is that because some of these projects were lower dollar, that it was we needed to sort of bundle these projects to get sort of the best rates that we could get for economies of scale. And so that often meant that there were some areas that we could probably do pretty quickly, but because they were bundled in sort of more complex areas, they got delayed quite a bit. So that's just something, that's just a project delivery issue that we're kind of working through. Also a lot of the areas that that sort of rose to the top for improvement are, really, really high dense areas, meaning that there's a lot of utility conflict, and utilities are a pain. So it's just here you think you have this easy project you're going to be able to do, but it just got hung up. Our projects were getting hung up in all these different things, but we're finally working through them, and we're gonna, gosh darn it, we're gonna go to add on some of those projects. And then just, talking about the technology solutions, as you all know, the changing technology, it is just moves so quick. And so by the time oh, let's try LiDAR, or let's try some other things. I feel like by the time we decide okay, we'll try it, and then we, take some time to, we do a pilot for 9 months, it's almost like the technology is already outdated. So, you know, I've challenged sort of our team to kind of come up with more of a technology plan, if you will, so that we're not just chasing the bright and shiny things, that we have, you know, some thought and focus and a plan for how we are using technology on our system. Also the cost of implementation, right? It's not only just the cost of, you know, implementing just the initial LiDAR as an example, but what are those long-term maintenance costs for our team that's already, you know, somewhat strapped. And then lastly, I mean, anything that requires power has the risk of theft and vandalism. And there are some areas in the region that are, you know, higher risk, but it's really, really becoming frustrating. We have spent probably just this year alone, I would say about $200,000 just, and those are probably more focused on maybe a handful of areas with just constantly going out and repairing theft and vandalism. And I'm telling you, we have tried some different solutions to cut down on that theft, like special locks on the boxes. Well, guess what? I think we did that here and they just took a sledgehammer. So like, well, okay. All right then. And so that's just something that we're trying to deal with. We're not the only ones, like our ITS division is also dealing with that. Just as a note, the Mount Vernon escape ramp, we actually are dealing with quite a bit of theft and vandalism of all of the wiring. So, and that's really frustrating because that results in huge safety concerns when they're stealing all the wire and then the systems aren't working. We actually had also a signal that went out because they stole all the wire. Again, huge safety implications. But we continue to try to deal with that, but they're pretty smart in getting around all of our locks and stuff. And with that, I think that was the last slide. Yep. With that, any questions?
Any questions, comments? Yeah, Tom.
Thanks. I'm curious about your user survey that you did kind of at the start of the project and how well the user identified hotspots aligned with accident data. Usually we have pretty good accident data on bike ped vehicular crashes. And I just wondered if those things correlated pretty well, or if the users were telling you that there were problem areas that didn't really match the accident data.
No, actually, it really correlates with the gap. With the gap location, really correlates what we have identified on that systemic analysis. I think that really matches. There was a lot of and very hotspot identified location. That was very helpful.
And then I liked your crosswalk marking. It doesn't, we don't see that pattern in the MUTCD, and I wondered if you had any concern about that.
Yes.
John, just pretend you're not hearing this.
It's a good idea.
We just want to pilot it. I think that's right now. That's the only location, and we just want to see if it works. There was a lot of near misses for pedestrians, and we're trying to see will that help. So this is not. This is a pilot, so it's not a permanent thing. So we'll run it by them.
I will say that it took a lot of discussion with our engineers to allow our maintenance team to implement that. So it was some spirited discussions.
Thank you.
Do you think it's something that is working and helping?
Thus far, yes. Thus far, we're seeing improvement. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like it would be something that definitely would help. Yeah. I did have on the first slide where you were showing the LiDAR maps of where people were crossing compared to where the crosswalks were. Like that location, did you consider putting a mid-block crosswalk with lighting to actually shift the traffic off of the four-way intersection compared to just a two-way. Because years ago, I'd seen a deal on, we should sometimes consider designing where dogs cross roads because they take the least threat to get across a road, which is usually just mid-block. They don't usually cross at an intersection because of the four-way traffic all the time. So was that considered, and then possibly moving bus stops mid-block to coincide with some of that to help alleviate some of that heavy congestion and visibility issues?
Yeah, that's the conversation we're having right now. And I think we did right here, Howard and Federal, we did a street simplified AI technology, and we did the same thing, similar to LiDAR. And we have seen a lot of near misses, and the result, we've received the result, but we have to run it by the stakeholders like RTDs and Denver as well. And what we noticed is there's a lot of bus stops and people are running, and that's a very dangerous intersection. And currently we're trying to schedule a meeting with RTD to make sure where can we have recommendations to relocate the bus stop, but we need to buy off from RTD. So on the Kipling side, I think we're thinking, we haven't decided yet, but I think, as you say, having a mid-block crossing will alleviate the intersection. That's a conversation we're currently having.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Very informative. Okay, up next is our Federal Lands Access Program, FLAP, call for projects. Andrew, is he online? Okay.
Morning, can everybody hear me?
Yep. Thank you.
All right, hi, everybody. Thanks for the time on the agenda today, and sorry I can't be there in person. So yeah, my name's Andrew Valdez. I'm the planning team lead at Central Federal Lands, part of Federal Highways. No slide deck today. I'm doing this the old-fashioned way. But first, I want to thank CDOT and reps from the TPRs for participating in last year's effort to discuss federal lands access needs with us and the Land Management Agency staff. For those that weren't aware of this effort, we went around the state and had these multi-agency workshops to discuss shared access needs on state highways and county roads. And I think that process has led to some fruitful collaboration and dialogue between the land management agencies and the state and local agencies. So with the access program, or FLAP, which I'm going to talk about in a minute here, we of course want to advance those projects of greatest need and impact and benefit. And I think that process really has helped us align priorities, and I think is going to ensure a successful call for projects this year. So we are, breaking down institutional silos, and now those needs are reflected in the 2050 TPR plans that CDOT just published, I think, earlier this year. So that tees up the FLAP call for projects really nicely. I've shared some materials, which I think you all should have in your agenda packets, but there was a FLAP FAQ and then our official call announcement letter that has kind of all the details about the call, but I'm going to go through those real high level with you guys. So we are going to open the call for projects on June 1st. And we'll be accepting applications through the end of August. Colorado receives about $16.5 million a year in FLAP funds, and we'll typically program anywhere from 2 to 4 years worth of a state's allocation in any one call. So that could mean we'll fund anywhere from $30 million to $60 million worth of projects. I'm sure probably most of the folks in here are familiar with eligibility, but in general, it's, any transportation facility, road, bridge, trail, trailhead, parking area, or signage, wayfinding that leads to public federal lands is eligible. So it's really like an outdoor recreational access program, which we love here in Colorado. As long as ownership and maintenance of the project isn't federal. So again, typically these are county roads, state highways, things like that. There's no required match, but we do love to see, partnerships and other leveraged funds being brought to the table. And one thing to note that other federal funding sources can be combined with FLAP. The program is kind of unique that way. So those are the broad strokes. The application materials and other info are currently posted on the Colorado FLAP webpage, which is on that announcement letter that I shared. We haven't done our big launch yet, our push to, FLMAs and the state and local partners. But when we do that, that same letter and FAQ will be going out to our master list of stakeholders. And we will be hosting some informational webinars on June 2nd for applicants, and then again on June 4th for the land management agencies. Those are non-mandatory, and call-in information is on the announcement letter. If anyone in the room wants an invite now, you can send me an email and I'll make sure to get you invited. So that's really all I had. I will be the point of contact for the call. So, feel free to reach out to me or forward folks to me if anyone has any questions. And yeah, I kept it pretty high and tight today. So if anyone has any questions today, happy to hang on and answer as best as I can. So thank you, everybody. We're looking forward to some good projects this call in Colorado.
Anybody have any questions or ideas to share for FLAP projects? Okay. Thank you for the information.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Up next is our planning process debrief with Marissa and Darius.
Yeah, so as we discussed earlier, we wanted to kind of start the conversation on lessons learned and how we can do better for future planning efforts and what worked and what didn't work. So I'm going to kick it over to my assistant director for multimodal planning, Marissa, who's going to start the conversation.
Thanks, Darius. So while most of us are here in person and it's very fresh in everyone's heads, we thought we would kind of kick this off to debrief a little bit, have an open discussion about the planning process. You want to go to the next slide. So Darius, a couple presentations ago, did a really lovely job of recapping the key milestones. So just be kind of thinking about all the great work that went into the development of the regional plans, the statewide transportation plan, 10-year plan, sort of beginning with, our performance-based planning in PD 14. If you are a rural TPR, the work that you did to develop your long-range regional transportation plans. If you are in an MPO area, the coordination and integration of your planning efforts with the long-range plan and our 10-year plan. The public outreach, the stakeholder outreach, telephone town halls, our survey, and then the adoption of our sort of our more long-range visionary, the 2050 plan at the end of last year. So those are kind of the things that to be thinking of as we want to hear from you, what worked well and what did not, and maybe things to keep in mind for when we do this in about 5 years again. I want to go to the next slide. So I think I talked about this, but really just want to hear from you guys. You were, played really key roles, and we could not have done it without all your hard work. So just want to hear from you what you think. We're trying to measure the planning process effectiveness, transparency, coordination, the timeline, the integration across transportation modes, and then just the usefulness of, what did we produce? Was it useful to you? How could it be more useful in the future? You want to go to the next slide. So when we sent out the STAC addendum on Tuesday, that included a link to a survey, and really encourage all of you to take that survey. I think it's pretty easy to understand, but usually you're going to have a scale of responses from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And then there's some questions that will ask you for some more open-ended feedback for deeper insights. It covers the full planning life cycle from development to our final deliverables. If you want to go to the next slide. So there's all these different kind of sections that it's organized into, just sort of your general thoughts, plan and modal integration, public and stakeholder engagement, the 10-year plan process, final deliverables, and project management. So please take that survey. Thank you. Next slide. So today, wanted just while we're all here, kind of have an open discussion that we'll be taking notes on as well. So we'll have a similar discussion if you're sticking around for the TPR administrators meeting this afternoon. That meeting will be more focused on the rural TPR planning process and insights. But for the STAC meeting, the first discussion area that we have is about rural TPR and MPO plan integration. If you're a rural TPR, sort of what aspects of the rural regional transportation planning process worked well for you? Where are there opportunities for improvement? If you're on the MPO side, how effectively were MPO plans and information integrated into the process, and where could that integration be strengthened? This is a conversational presentation.
It's our turn to speak. To give input. Anyone?
Say something. I feel like the timing is always an issue with MPOs and the state. Like, it never seems like our plans match the timeline for the state's plans. And so we're always, having to figure out how to coordinate and integrate wherever you're at, the state's at in the process. And so I don't know if there's a possibility to better align the timelines for those efforts, but I think that's been an issue forever. So I don't know if it changes, but that would be something I think the MPOs have mentioned multiple times over lots of years.
Do all the MPOs do theirs at the same time? It seemed to me like they kind of do theirs at different times, which makes it, I don't know if those timelines can be shifted to get them all to match, so then the TPRs kind of match or not. There.
Yeah, I think the only problem is that who is going to get the shorter timeline, and that's the hard question.
Federal requirements, the MPOs have to meet with that, right? So the MPOs are under a different federal timeline, I would say. And I don't know, I don't know if you guys want to add on.
Okay. Tom.
From the rural perspective, one of the things that we did at Intermountain TPR, and we've done for a long time, is to actually have a kind of prioritized project list. And I felt like this go around, CDOT staff was a little bit uncomfortable with that. I think we were told that we didn't need to create a prioritized project list, and we went ahead and did it anyhow. When I look at the 10-year plan that we just made recommendation on, I see, really good alignment between what we prioritized and what CDOT staff have built into the 10-year plan, which I think is great. I don't know how much of that is a result of the prioritization effort we made at the TPR level, but I can't help but believe that it did help. And so I think some of my feedback is that we like actually going through the process of trying to identify and prioritize specific projects. Over the years, we've done that in different ways. I can remember when we identified and prioritized corridors, and that worked pretty well too. But I like that aspect of it, and I hope to see that continue in future revisions of the plan as well.
Yeah, Brad.
Kind of to echo what Tom talked about, my predecessor, Heather Shoup, set up a big spreadsheet of all the projects in the Northwest TPR, and then we prioritized them, whatever it was, 8 years ago or something like that. And this process was pretty simple for our TPR. I had all the reps just look at the list and say, these were your priorities, what's finished, what has moved into a higher prioritization level, and then we reordered them, and we felt very supported by CDOT staff to put those new priorities in place. Of course, there's always we don't have enough funding back end of that, but at least we felt listened to, and the priorities were taken into account.
Yeah, Todd.
Yeah, thank you. Elizabeth, I know you kept looking at me like I was gonna. In terms of the schedule, you damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, I think it's gonna be impossible to get everyone on the exact same schedule. And then when that happens, there's gonna be something from the state level or federal level that makes a plan have to sort of pause or go forward unexpectedly. So it's never gonna be perfect, unfortunately. I also think from a local government perspective, especially within NPOs, and I know we get this all the time and maybe other NPOs do also, but there still seems to be a huge disconnect in terms of what exactly the 10-year plan is in its relationship to the statewide plan, and how that relates from a metropolitan area that is an NPO with the TIP and their regional transportation plan. It just seems like we're always fielding questions on exactly sort of where those connections happen, and whom a local government should really work with in terms of getting their project funded. Because honestly, that's all they care about. They don't care necessarily where it resides. They know that if it's in a TIP, it's going to be funded. If it's in the first 4 years of the 10-year plan, it's going to be funded, and therefore it's in the STIP. Beyond that, I think there's still a lot of confusion out there.
Dana, online.
Sorry about that. Couldn't find my audio button. So I think that the coordination, on the project prioritization has been good. I think something that I've had a little bit, I think the thing is like the transition from the previous 10-year plan to the new 10-year plan, especially like funding for different projects. It feels like we kind of have to figure out how to get the funding on ones that are going to like organizations. And so I think that could be maybe improved as we're finishing one 10-year plan and transitioning to the other, like what projects are on there, what's the status of that funding, the status of those projects, and kind of a conversation. I think that's more so on the transit side. I think when it's going through a region, like there's region staff to do that. But it seems like there was a little bit of a disconnect on the transit funding from the previous 10-year plan to the current one.
For Eastern, I think we went more to the corridor prioritization. I think we still would like to have more of the projects and a definition of those costs for partly statewide planning to help share that information at the state level to try to figure out how to get things better funded. Because we kind of felt like when we switched to corridor, it made it harder to know the potential costs of projects on long corridors that just have a lot of required maintenance needs and upgrades compared to projects that are bigger expansion or other interstate reconstruction, which always is a big issue with having two interstates, rural interstates that are continually seem to take majority of our funding availability. So it's we would like to see go back to a little bit more of that project prioritization and getting the numbers to share of those costs long-term to keep the system operating. So I think that was one thing that felt a little lacking is I didn't feel this plan was as forthcoming with the shortfall of funding need that some of our previous plans had. Yeah. Eva.
Yeah, I just kind of want to echo a couple of things that the schedules are off. I mean, we were kind of last updating our 2050 plan, so it throws us off. This process was a little bit different and it was better in some respects than the last 10-year plan go around. That was like my first, I was just stepping into the role as a transportation planner at the time, so it was very new to me. But this last time it was better because we had a lot of coordination with our region. However, I had gotten all our local agencies together and said, hey, let's do a project prioritization. So we worked really hard. And then CDOT's like, well, this is great, but we don't have enough money for this. And we also have these existing projects. And I felt like, well, was that a waste of time for us to do all that? And in hindsight, it wasn't, because it actually helped us with our 2050 long range plan and look at those aspirational projects. But I also think it would have been good for us for CDOT to say like, hey, this is what we are expecting. That way, at least going into it, we'd know like, okay, there's existing projects that need to be completed, which I totally understand. But I think just having that communication and just having that clear expectations of what they want to see, and then also understanding where they're at is really helpful to know what their priorities are and just communicating that so we're all on the same page.
I just wanted to say thank you to our group that came down and helped us through our plan. I had 8 new members who had never been through the process. So prioritization was a question. Are we doing that with the new? It was very hard to get responses back because they weren't really sure. They didn't have that experience, but I was very thankful to the crew that came down and worked through our process because we had to work on it for several meetings and, really encourage them to give the feedback. So I thought the process went really well for us.
I want to go to the next slide. And thank you, everyone. That was really terrific feedback. The next discussion conversation is around plan and modal integration. So we tried really hard to integrate a lot of different areas into the statewide plan and into the 10-year plan in alignment with our performance goals. So just to list, I think some of those key areas, they, of course, asset management for fixing our roads, safety for advancing transportation safety. Freight has elements of both safety, asset management, and other needs, resiliency, active transportation, transit, and rail, just to name a few of the key areas. But want to hear from you, how effectively were those areas integrated into the overall process? Are there other areas that we need to be thinking about more for future planning, and where could integration be strengthened?
Eva.
Well, I think that something that's been brought up on our board a lot is asset management, and that's been a huge issue, especially with the city and identifying who's responsible for different maintenance issues. I mean, that's brought up every single meeting. And so I think just having clear communication of that and integrating that process, I think that's really important. And especially because there's so many overlap when there's different right of way. So I think that would really help with our board and hopefully clarify some of their questions.
Thanks. I felt like what was missing here was a bucket for, capacity improvement. And we talk a lot about how there's just not a whole lot of money available for capacity improvement. And everybody understands that, but it felt like we've given up on the aspiration of there being money in the future for capacity improvement. It sort of was in resiliency, and I think resiliency is a word that we're, at least in local government, in my world, we're throwing around a lot more, but I'm not sure we really understand what it means or have clarified that. So I would like to see in the next version, there being a category or bucket for those capacity projects. We do continue to grow both regionally and as a state, and I don't want to lose sight of the need to keep up with that growth and send a message that we're going to have to figure out how to fund keeping up with that growth. So I wasn't, as we went through the process, I wasn't quite sure how to capture that in this list.
Others? Yeah, I would kind of echo that. It's not necessarily capacity, but just safety improvements. I know some of the corridors out east, they'd like at least more passing lanes, if not actually 4-laning some areas on the heavy freight corridors for safety and those issues. Another issue we had a little bit of trouble with in our TPR was getting the transit piece kind of integrated with the TPR planning piece and getting that true feedback back and forth. I think that in our TPR especially, we may need a little bit more active participation at meetings to make sure that plan is better integrated with the whole TPR and not kind of just coming in from a outside perspective. So active transportation for our area is very limited to the small towns, so it's not as big an issue for our area. Resiliency falls into asset management, just good roads and alternative routes. So. Any others on that one? Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. The next discussion topic is long-range plan development. So this is our 2050 visionary work. So what extent does the statewide plan and the associated plans reflect your community? Where could representation be improved? What aspects of the 2050 statewide planning process again worked well? Where are there opportunities for improvement? And the next slide will be the 10-year plan. So just to give you, but this is, we tried to phase it where we had the vision and then the 10-year plan work together.
I think our community input, I think, works well for our area. I think the surveys worked well. One thing I'd like to see a little bit more, maybe with the next one, is a little bit more sharing of each region's plans with the whole group to kind of help everybody understand the statewide interaction and coordination between regions. I think that could be improved a little bit in the next plan, is actually have some better presentations on each region and how they integrate on the statewide, so that if there's gaps or conflicts, they could be addressed through that sort of a process that I think kind of has lacked in the previous plans. Any other? Okay, anybody online? I can't see hands raised right now, so. Okay.
And then lastly, go to the next slide, Aaron. Aaron sidebar, sorry. I could probably done that. Thank you, Aaron. I could do this myself. Just give it to me. the 10-year plan development. And some of this is woven in, of course, because, you know, the 10-year plan is really the tool that brings it all together in many ways. But what aspects of the 10-year plan process worked well, and where there are opportunities for improvement?
Any other comments, Tom?
I think I'm becoming more familiar and better understanding what the 10-year plan is. And I remember the first one that I saw, and I think this was true for most of us at the TPR level, we were not really sure what it was or where it came from. And so I think the increased communication about how the 10-year plan fits in with the STIP and with the long range plan has been great. And, you know, I like that. I'm not sure I fully understand exactly how CDOT staff look at and evaluate the long range plan as they're creating the 10-year plan. And so I think maybe a little bit more communication. I don't want to say transparency because I don't feel that there's like that it's a hidden process or anything, but just a better understanding of how staff are using the long range plan to inform the 10-year plan would be great. It looks like it happened, but I'm not quite sure how it happened. So.
Yeah, I would kind of echo that. That's kind of my region had similar issues, is not fully feeling like our priorities were fully integrated with the 10-year plan, which part of that's the funding decrease in the 10-year plan from previous drafts and those issues. But I think, and then just integration, I almost sometimes feel like we get too entwined because of the 10-year plan requirements to get that funding. It almost has hindered a little bit the bigger perspective of how do we take all funding available, because a lot of the 10-year plans still are requiring other funding from all the other to even get them done. So it's somewhat creating a misconception to the public that, well, if it's in the 10-year plan, it's getting all the funding it needs. Most of them aren't. I mean, or comments at the commission on 270. Well, there's not enough funding in the 10-year plan to do it, so 270 shouldn't be in the 10-year, shouldn't be in the plan. And that's a problem statewide. None of these projects can move forward without other funding. So most likely, I don't know of any of the 10-year plan projects that aren't using other funding. So that's kind of creating a misconception with the public that these are funds that will do these projects when in reality they can't, because there's not enough. So I don't know how we address that with the current perspectives, but other than just maybe better communication. I know it was mentioned through the process, but it makes it challenging on both sides. So, Elizabeth.
I agree 100% with what Todd was saying with the 10-year plan and the confusion that it created in this sense from CDOT has their 10-year plan and then it comes to the MPOs and says, what's your 10-year plan? And our 10-year plan and the projects and what we would have in our plan may not align with CDOT's plan. And so really, I think the question came down to what are the priorities in your region, but it created confusion for the elected officials of, well, we have a 10-year plan and you have a 10-year plan. So whose is the 10-year plan? Vision, what's the correct one and whose is it? I think really the disconnect is talking about PD 14 and where you guys as CDOT derive your priorities to create that vision and how we're communicating some of those policies that essentially the Transportation Commission is creating that is leading to how those projects are getting selected as from a region perspective. And necessary in the MPO's 10-year plans essentially don't have to be CDOT's 10-year plan. They can be their separate plans. And there's how that gets communicated with elected officials is, important for all of us to be saying the same message.
Any other comments? Anybody online?
Well, thank you, everyone. That was really awesome feedback. We'll have a similar conversation with the TPR administrators. I think they see this process through a really unique angle as well, so we'll get their input. And then we'll have the survey open that was sent out. So if you are thinking about this anymore, you know, please take that survey. If you have any additional input, you can fill it in the survey. It will be collecting all this feedback and coming up with a draft report that we'll send out probably around in the June, July timeframe. But I know this is, I think, my third long-range planning. Erin, how many planning processes have you been involved in? Okay, we won't say, but we do use these. Is the message I wanted to say is, you know, I know it seems like, I'm sure I'm very excited to be wrapping up this 2-year planning process, but I do, or if I'm here in 5 years, who knows, but we do look at these reports as that they're a good refresher of what we can improve on. And I think our goal is always to do each plan a little bit better than we did the one before. So this is really great feedback, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do the survey. And if you need another QR code to take the survey, it is on the screen.
I would encourage to try to get that resent out to all the TPR members, and within the TPRs, make sure the administrators get that shared to everybody in each region. So try to get those a good response. Okay, thank you. All right, looks like we're still about a half hour early. So up next is our freight program update with Craig.
All right, good morning. If you don't know me, my name is Craig Hurst. I'm the
Why don't you sit at the table?
It's working now as soon as I took it out, so maybe it was the holder. Well, good morning. My name's Craig Hurst. I'm the statewide freight program manager. Today I just coming to give you a high level of what the freight program's been working on. If you know me, we're only doing high level because I'll talk to you for the rest of the time that the sun's out today about this, if not. And so we're gonna go over this real quick. Feel free to stop me and ask any questions if needed. All right, so the overview today is going to really touch on the Colorado Freight Plan, a National Highway Freight Program, which is a federal freight funding program. Our truck parking study that we're about to initiate or kick off here in the next week or so. Senate Bill 24-100 had a legislative signage project that came out of it that we just completed. We're about to start a freight routing resiliency study. And we are working on some projects with the Port of Entry this year. And there's some discussions around oversized and overweight permitting operations and some new resources that we've been developing. All right, so the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was a continuation of the FAST Act when it comes to freight plans. And it continued the requirement that all states have a freight plan. The only change was Instead of having a freight plan every 5 years, we're now required to have one every 4 years. CDOT's last freight plan was approved in March of 2024. And so obviously we have another one coming due in 2028. In early 2026, so just a couple months ago, FHWA guidance came out, and it's really nothing has changed in the requirements of the freight plan, but there is a continued focus on Freight Advisory Council participation and then resilience. And so I know we just talked about, we just had someone talk about resilience and the meaning of that. I think there's about 700 meanings of that, but we are going to dial in one when it comes to freight and freight routing and how we continue to be able to move goods and services in emergencies, essentially. All right, so now, so these are louder. As discussed earlier, National Highway Freight Program is a federal freight funding program. It is an 80-20 split. So that funding started with the FAST Act. The first dollar spent for CDOT was in 2017. And since then, we've invested about $200 million in statewide freight projects. You can see the breakdown. So when we get to the other category, I always hate having an other category, but they just didn't fit into anything, any of these other categories significantly well. They're really all just safety projects that are identified with the regions to address issues that have a history of CMB safety issues there. But you can see we've spent about 10% of the money improving truck parking, another 10 or 9.4% improving bridges. We spent 22% of that money, or about $42 million, on chain stations since 2017. Another 25% roughly on climbing lanes on Vail Pass and a couple other areas around the state. We've improved mobility, and then we've worked with our partners at the Port of Entry and State Patrol to improve some of the enforcement situations around the state. That's a key objective, just because we can do a lot of work to improve infrastructure, but the Port of Entry and the scale houses that we have around the state are what's there to ensure that trucks are not violating weight laws, which will then therefore kind of tear up our infrastructure at a faster rate than we anticipate. Anybody have any questions on that? There's a lot of detail kind of not hidden in this, but the details of the projects, obviously we have those to share too in the future. So at the end of our freight plan in 2024, we had purchased this data that really is kind of tax data from every county in the state, and it really drills down to where we're doing trade. Our biggest trade partner in certain areas is Canada, and it kind of talks about how freight moves in and out of the state. And so what we did is contractually, when we bought that data, we were not able to break it down and share that core data with everybody, but we were able to make this data visualization tool. It's a dashboard, and local planners, MPO and TPR planners can all use this information. And so that tool is available through the Freight website. And if you want to reach out to me directly, if you want that, we can definitely talk through that and help anybody interested in using that tool. It's available to anybody in the state. All right, so one of the requirements in every freight plan that every state's supposed to do is a truck parking assessment. And so we are about a week out from our kickoff meeting to start our updated truck parking assessment. We have done truck parking studies in the past. You can see the 2019 truck parking studies linked right here on this, as well as our 2022 truck parking playbook. But in this upcoming study, we will be doing an update of the statewide inventory, both private and public. We will be looking at and analyzing areas where we need more truck parking. What's interesting is that the state will have a hard time solving certain truck parking problems because truck parking is, if the state owns it, is a rest area. And, without further developing, this truck parking solutions. Really what we're doing is focused on improving rest areas with our real estate team. But one of the things that we've been continuing to work on is analyzing where these truck parking needs are and working with the private sector to try to solve those. To me, personally, I think that's the best solution for truck parking, because CDOT can't go out and provide showers and, you know, be able to sell dinners and the things that truck drivers need. And so the human aspect of that really makes it tough for CDOT to solve that problem on our own. And so we're constantly looking for partnerships to solve truck parking. Another thing is we're going to take another closer look and revamp our truck parking playbook. What the truck parking playbook is exactly what I was just talking about. It's educating kind of everybody in this room and everybody that you're working with on what the truck parking issues are, what the origin of them are. A lot of times, even elected officials are handcuffed in this discussion, because when we need to require truck parking spots be developed in the development phase of, I said development 3 times, so I don't want to say that again, but as we're developing new industrial areas, we need truck parking. But an elected official doesn't know who that end user of that new development will be until far later in the process. And so a lot of times when a new development happens, you don't know that it's going to be, and I'll just say Amazon because we don't know it. You don't know that's going to be an Amazon or a Walmart distribution center or something along those lines until way later after that development's already approved. And then the state has to come in and try to solve the truck parking issue after the fact. And what ends up happening is that, you know, there's not enough land left, or the land that is available in that area either isn't set back enough from multifamily housing, or there's other plans that kind of conflict with truck parking coming to that area. And so we're trying to help in this truck parking playbook, educate on the things that could happen to help get in front of the problem instead of trying to catch up later on after development happens. So you'll see those updates coming. Those are all tools, and it's kind of my team's outreach to say, please work with us, please help us. We want to help local governments that are having truck parking issues, but we don't have land use and zoning authority. And so we really need local governments to come to us when they do need help, and then we will help, you know, work through and find some funding solutions and so on and so forth. But I think truck parking is going to continue to be a challenge around the country because of land use and zoning issues. And again, I don't think it's anybody's fault. I really just think it's a process driven thing that we need to continue to study. The freight team here is involved in national studies on this. And so we're looking constantly at how to try to solve this problem. But if anybody has this as a key issue in their community, feel free to reach out to us and we'll begin to help look for solutions. So as I said earlier, we've been working on improving what we can, like where we can make an impact. So we've been working side by side with CDOT's real estate asset management team on the rest areas. And so Shaw Creek rest area off of 160, we're currently in the process, and I think it should finish in May, or in early June. Shaw Creek is off Highway 160. 160 is a key freight route in the southwest portion of our state. We are going from 4 truck parking spots there to 10. And although that doesn't seem like a lot, on that corridor, that's a very impactful project. Significantly under $1 million for that investment. And so that's a really good return on investment for that area. The next project is Araba Rest Area off of I-70. I'm sure many are familiar with it. That's the second most utilized rest area in the state. The CDOT real estate asset management team recently completed a project to update and improve the building at that rest area. But one of the key issues at that rest area was we're spending quite a bit of money watering the grass there. It's a large grass area. So the opportunity that we jumped in on was to eliminate some of the unused grass area and add truck parking. We only had 9 spots there. This design will add 30 more truck parking spots there, and 3 300-foot long truck parking spots for those big windmill blades that unfortunately we'll have to pull over on the side of the road from time to time. We're hoping to give them a safe place to do so, whether that's for rest or for maintenance issues or anything along those lines. they really don't have a great place to pull over safely anywhere in the state. And so we're trying to make some changes there to improve safety of those. The Virginia Dale Rest area is on Highway 287 going towards the Wyoming border. We're making improvements there that make it more available and usable for trucks. There's not a lot of truck parking there. There's nothing else in that corridor. And so just having 1 or 2 truck parking spots there, allowing them to use the restroom safely is a key win for us. And again, a great ROI for the money that we're putting into it. It's a pretty small number. And then finally, the Vail Pass Rest area. We worked during the development of the new Vail Pass Rest area. We went, we provided funding to build an expanded truck parking location. I think we can get up to 23 trucks at the rest area now in a dedicated commercial motor vehicle truck parking area. In the past, we only had 6 truck parking spots there. And in the winter, those competed with the snowmobiles and all of the other recreational activities that are happening there. Now, with the new design, all of that with those 20 spots, those are separated from the area where the winter recreation stuff can happen. They're separated from the general parking lot, and it's really more dedicated for trucks. So that is a huge win. And then as you see the Vail Pass project continue, we have another $4 million invested there to improve truck parking at the top of Vail Pass. And so I think those are kind of opportunities that I don't expect to get again in my career. And so we're really proud that we were able to have an impact at the Vail Pass Rest area, because it's tough to get truck parking on any part of the corridor on I-70. All right, so this next slide, sorry that it's covering the top. It's really talking about our emergency truck parking study. So we live in Colorado. We have bad weather sometimes. Although our maintenance teams do a fantastic job clearing snow and keeping the roads open, the rate in which snow falls can be a challenge for us at times. And we have to shut down roadways, obviously. And so where do the trucks go in those scenarios? If we think back to the old bomb cyclone, I think that was what, 2019 or something like that. There were portions of the state that would have up to 75 trucks stuck on the interstate at one time. And that's a double-edged sword. Not only, do we care about the humans that are inside those trucks and what's happening with them, but when you're stuck on the road, we can't plow it either. And so it's kind of a double negative in that situation, where not only are you not going to get unstuck because we can't plow it, now that could extend the time you're going to be stuck in your truck. And so our goal is to develop a network of locations statewide that we can implement during predicted snowstorms and have trucks overflow into those parking lots. My team will bring in restroom facilities, potentially work with like food trucks and things like that to have these locations that drivers can go to safely. Now, these locations aren't necessarily CDOT owned. Well, right now, none of them are CDOT owned, but you can imagine there are some large parking lots in the state that aren't used during snowstorms. And so our first contractual, it doesn't cost us any money, but our first contract was signed with the Denver Broncos to use right outside this building, parking lots D and E. We give them 72 hours notice, and then they give us those parking lots to utilize. We are currently in the talks to have that same agreement with the old Heritage Square amusement park in Golden. That's a great location right off of I-70 that I think will be easy for us to kind of shut down the road there, push all trucks overflowing to that, and get that back open and push people back onto the road once the roads are open safely. That's not being utilized at all. It's owned by Martin Marietta, and they have been very welcoming and gracious in the discussion. And we should have, they currently have a contract in hand and reviewing it. But I think by next winter, we're hoping to have several more locations. But those are the first two that our team has. We'll just say we've secured the Heritage Square, but working on finalizing that. So what do we need for that program? I think the hardest challenge that we have is beyond the locations. You need staff, you need facilities. You need great communication plans to get trucks to actually want to go there, variable message signs. So we've spent some money. We gotten that all on the front end. We were ready to activate this the first time ever doing this at the Broncos Stadium, and then winter forgot to happen. And so we're hoping that next winter we'll be able to demonstrate that this is something that can be a positive thing for our state, no matter if it's wind related or snow related. So if you think about, say, north of Owl Canyon on I-25 as you're going to the Wyoming border in Cheyenne, that shuts down whether it's windy in Colorado or it's windy in Wyoming. And we all know Wyoming's like second name has to do with wind. And so I think we have to expand kind of when do we need these things. It's not just snowstorms. Those are pretty obvious, but high wind events, you know, you can go down south near Walsenburg and have that same issue. And so this is my request to everybody. If you know of a parking lot that's underutilized during snowstorms, please reach out. I'll go be the person that asks, you know, to create that partnership. I won't put that on you, but if you can connect us to those statewide, we're wide open. We would love to build a network that makes sense. Because you can imagine if we try to use the Denver Broncos Stadium on the only day that it snowed, there was a playoff game there. So we're probably not getting access to that parking lot that day, right? So we need an entire network of these things. And then I think that the other key point where we're looking at locations is east of the metro, east of the Denver metro. So Watkins, Aurora, those are going to be key locations because from Air Park to the state line, that's where we have our longest and most impactful road closures due to high winds and blowing snow and those types of things. And so we're looking to develop, you know, that network in all parts of our state, but that's a key one that we're looking to solve here in the near future. And so we are talking with the Denver Coliseum. We should, I think that meeting scheduled for us for next week, and we're hoping that'll be our third location. And then once we have these locations in place and we can kind of demonstrate that we're able to not only keep them safe, but kick trucks off the property once the roads are open, I think we'll have more organizations willing to work with us moving forward. And so I think kind of burdens on us to prove that this is going to work, and I think we're ready to do so. All right, so in the introduction, I said Senate Bill 24-100 had some new laws, and those new laws demanded that we put up new signs to communicate those laws. So the must-carry chain law expanded pretty significantly west of the I-25 corridor. And so we had to put signs kind of delineating where the must-carry law expanded to, where it starts and where it stops. So there's a significant amount of signs added for that. We have the left lane restrictions on I-70. So, you know, we did all the signage changeovers for that. And then we also had the downhill double fine zone on 12 mountain downhill passes. And we needed signs for all of that. I'll tell you, my team did absolutely zero of the work, except we directed about $1.25 million to that project, and all 5 regions went out and did the work for us. So I appreciate that collaboration and effort by all the regions to complete that project. So this is probably the first time we've said publicly that that project's completely done now. There were some, you know, lingering signs in hard to reach places, but we are completely done with that now, and we will start seeing the benefits of enforcement from that now. I think the hardest thing for State Patrol was they were also waiting for the signage, because not just the drivers need to know where that's at, but if you're a trooper, you know, you need to know that you're inside of that area and can write that ticket as well. And so we've been working with them, have provided them maps and things of all these changes as well. And that project is now complete. So here's some more of the areas, just kind of that we added those signs. You can see there's a lot of different locations, but they're all directly associated with what was in the legislation. And here's the list of the 12 mountain peaks that have the double fine zones. I'll tell you, the law is a little vague. It doesn't name any of these locations, but as we are trying to get better compliance with downhill speeding, we thought the best process, at least to start, was to identify the locations that we already have commonly used names for. So it really helps our communication efforts when you can say Berthoud and Georgetown and Loveland, instead of having to say mile marker this to mile marker that. It's a much easier communications effort, both for Colorado drivers and for drivers that are coming from out of state. When we can name the mountain pass, much easier than the milepost. And so those were selected by my team and the engineering team for that reason in general. There are probably other locations that qualify, but this is where we started, simply for the ability to get some traction and have a good communication plan to support it. All right, so the resiliency study is going to be a big discussion, and it's something that will continue to be part of the freight planning effort for our 4-year cycles moving forward. Again, obviously, living in Colorado, we have unique challenges, and we all remember when I-70 was closed, whether that was because of the fire or the landslide, and kind of the pressure that it puts on US 40 and Highway 50. Highway 50 was under construction at the Little Blue Creek Canyon project during the I-70 closures, which just added complexity, because in the mountains, we have affordable houses being built down here in the Denver metro and being moved up into the mountain area, and the detours are 150 miles sometimes because of projects. That's okay. The projects are great. But when we're detouring 150 miles, people are saying, well, why are these trucks all of a sudden on the route that I live on? I never see trucks. Well, that's the closest detour that's possible. And so, we're really looking at resiliency from that standpoint. Most people don't know that during those fires, we couldn't get aviation fuel up to the airports that were fighting the fires in a single day trip. So now you have a 2-day trip, and we just don't have truck drivers that can run hazardous material that you can just pluck from somewhere else and all of a sudden, provide the same level of service. And so we're working on, identifying the best solutions when we have major freight routes closed. Another part of the study that we're looking at is when we had that unfortunate rail departure over I-25 and the bridge collapse. We were trying to get heavy equipment down to help resolve that issue and clean up, and we couldn't get anything from the north because both of the detours around I-25 had construction projects with restrictions on them at 11-foot wide. Both of those projects are great projects. We'll never say, let's not do or road projects. We just are working on plans to get ahead of those issues. If they do happen, how are we going to pull back restrictions and be able to respond to the emergency at hand? And so we'll address those issues in the resiliency study. We might not solve the problem immediately, but just think of our resiliency study as phasing. We're going to have several phases because that discussion can continue. And like we were joking about earlier, there's probably 100 different definitions for what resiliency is, but we're going to key in on what impacts freight and how routing, all of our projects even that have bridge girders and everything have to be moved on oversized loads. And so sometimes you have to find a solution. There really isn't a way you say you can't move that. And so that's what that focus will be on. And we will continue to talk to you all about resiliency in that sense for the next couple of years. Is going to be a key part of the freight program continuing moving forward. All right, as I said before, we're working with the Port of Entry. One of the key things is improving weigh in motion. So what weigh in motion is it's our first opportunity as a truck is approaching a Port of Entry location to recognize if they're in compliance with axle and gross vehicle weight laws. We wouldn't, we don't take enforcement off of weigh in motions. The Port of Entry does not, but it is enough to give them either a green light, they can keep on going. They've been recently inspected. They have a clean safety record. We'll give you, in a sense, a green light. There's no way our Port of Entry teams could process every truck that goes by. So there is a nationwide system basically that says if we've inspected you recently and you're not violating any of our other indicators that say you're either overweight or over height or something like that and don't have a permit, then we usually let trucks go by. But the ones that they do pull in are usually it starts at the weigh in motion, which, you know, precedes every port of entry by about a mile or so. And then we pull trucks in based off of that need. We haven't maintained those to the best of, to the extent that maybe we should have. So there's a project that's going on right now that is going to replace weigh in motions and fix the pavement and concrete at 7 locations statewide this summer. The first one that you'll see done is at Dumont. It's basically a 72-hour project and will have limited impact on traffic, but these will go a long way in the Port of Entry's ability to continue to enforce weight laws and safety laws on the trucking industry, which I think we can all find valuable in terms of preserving our infrastructure and ensuring that we're all safe on the road out there. The other thing that we're working on is signage. We're in the middle of designing a sign project. While we were doing this weigh in motion design, we recognized that of the 9 physical port of entry locations that we have statewide, none of them have the same sign plan as you approach it. So everyone says something differently. That bothers me a bit because I'm involved in this on a daily basis. And if I'm confused, then a driver from Arkansas is probably way more confused. And so by the end of that project, every port of entry in the state will have the same sign package that precedes them. So everybody knows what we're asking them consistently every time. We're improving the digital signage as well inside those ports of entries. And I think it's just a good investment for us to collaborate with our enforcement partners that are protecting our infrastructure and helping make our roads safe. And so that's kind of our first steps towards helping them upgrade their infrastructure and modernize it so they can keep up with all the changes that are happening and the growth that's happening. And then finally, just a quick overview on oversized and overweight and hazmat permitting from 2025. Last year was CDOT's biggest year ever. We issued 68,416 permits, brought in 9.7 million in permit revenue. The year before that, or the biggest year before that was around 65,000 permits. So we saw more than 3,000 permits last year than we had ever seen before in the history of CDOT. Really where we saw a significant increase from a commodity standpoint is the energy infrastructure investment showed over 25% in growth. So when you're looking at wind energy, we went from about 3,000 permits in 2024 to about 4,000 permits in 2025. And then also energy infrastructure and electrical components like battery energy storage systems or battery walls. Those are big trending items. And then really what that translates to is an abnormal amount of what we call superloads. And superloads are 500,000 pounds and greater. And, investing in electrical infrastructure translates to lots of superloads. So we've already issued 14 superload permits in 2026. In all of 2025, we only had 22. We only had 12 in 2024 and 7 in 2023. So being at 14 through the end of March is gonna, it's kind of indicating that we already have a pretty tough year ahead of us. If you all saw those loads being moved by Mammoth Transport for XL Energy, those were about 1.3 million pounds, about 300 feet long, 20 wide, 19 tall, and they move about the same speed as a parade, so walking speed. And we had to move those 33 miles from Loveland to the St. Vrain power plants, and there was 4 of those. We have 2 more of those moving from Hudson to Fort Lupton power plant. They're about $150 million per item that's being moved. And so that is what reinvesting into our electrical infrastructure looks like. It's challenging, but it also calls for good corridor planning and things like that, because in that 33-mile move, we could have potentially dropped off one of those loads at the train side in in Platteville, but the bridges that we would have had to cross to go over the rivers to bring that to the St. Vrain power plant aren't rated to hold that amount of weight. And you can imagine 1.3 million pounds is a lot more than normal. And so So instead of, having a 5-mile trip, we have a 33-mile trip because we found a route that had bridges. So none of us really want to do that. We don't want those routes to happen that way, but sometimes that's the only way to get things done. So the one thing I would say is there's a lot of great projects happening in 2026 statewide. With that, we'll have construction restrictions around the state, which will force us to route oversized loads on the routes that are uncommon. Please feel free to call us if you're getting questions about that. We really do not want, we're not trying to be negatively impactful, but just for some insight, the Piccadilly interchange on I-70 in Aurora had an 11-foot width restriction. So all of the wind energy moves that we're trying to go on I-70, we're having to go all the way south down to Highway 86 that goes through Castle Rock, Elizabeth, Kiowa. They rarely see over 100 permits a year on that route, and they were up to 400 last year. And so obviously that's impactful. It's almost 100 miles away. So it's really hard to say, for people to go, oh, well, that's just the Piccadilly project. That's the Piccadilly project almost 100 miles north of where I'm at, and so it's hard to relate those two. But we're going to do this safely. We're going to do it to the best of our ability. But if you see some, large trucks on roads that you don't usually see them on, it's also for a good reason. It's because we're doing really good projects on major freight routes that will improve our ability to be, to be successful and safe moving forward. So it's a temporary detour is what I would say. But to stay relevant, what moves on OSOW right there is the crew capsule that just went around the moon. So that was built at Lockheed Martin. We were transporting it back in October of 2020 and escorting it to the Pueblo airport so it could then be shipped to Huntsville, Alabama for testing. But that's the kind of stuff that's moving on overweight. It's not just, energy or, construction equipment or construction materials. Things going to space are moving as well. And so that crew capsule was about 2 weeks after the heat shield. And the heat shield was worth $4 billion and had 110,000 jobs in the program. And then that was worth $3.6 billion. So you can imagine they wanted to protect that as it was moving down I-25. And so just for some insight, like that's also the type of thing that moves in oversized and overweight. All right, so this is my final slide. This is how we moved loads through Colorado in 2025. You can see the thicker the line, the more we use that route. And you can see usually these really thin lines in the mountains are 1 or 2 permits. They were going to a specific customer. No one's sightseeing through the mountains with oversized loads. But you can see, a lot of the reason that you'll see the Eastern Plains have a little more thickness is because it's the lack of vertical clearance challenges is the biggest thing that keeps loads east. And then a lot of stuff is coming out of the Houston break bulk port, large stuff. And one of the most interesting routes in my time, doing this job is 491 down in the southwest corner of Colorado. You can see this kind of thicker line there. A lot of that is coming into Houston and going to Alaska. So they're on their way to Seattle to put that on a boat again, or, a truck, and it's going to go all the way up to Alaska. So 491 is just a really kind of random, but really important freight route as well. But you can see the top 5 commodities. Interesting, the only thing that's changed out of the top 5 in all 9 years that I've been here is that farm and utilities have switched. Utilities used to be a lot lower number, and farm equipment used to be number 5. This year that's flipped for the first time ever, and utilities has surpassed farm equipment in oversized and overweight moves. And so it's construction equipment, front loaders, all the stuff that we see, to start construction, dirt movers, that's all what you're seeing the most of. Oil field equipment is interesting because it's not always what you think it is, but it's just categorized that way. Very few large oil field equipment moves these days. A lot of that is like Liberty and stuff like that, moving equipment, not necessarily the big slug catchers or anything like we were seeing back in 2017, 2018 timeframe. And this is really what I was getting at. So what you'll find on the freight website is this restriction map. Every red line is a construction restriction or a seasonal restriction. If you click on the red line, it would have details like 11-foot width restriction, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or 11-foot width restriction from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily, something along those lines. All this is perspective on, the limited routes that we're working with. And that's why sometimes you'll see us detour onto routes you're not accustomed to. Every one of the black, yellow, or orange icons there is a weight restricted structure. And then every red line is a restriction that we're complying with. And so when we say, oh, well, why didn't they go on I-70 or I-25? Well, it's usually because of one of these restrictions has prevented that, and we're just trying to find a safe alternate route. All right, so finally, when it comes to resources, we do have a freight website, freight.cotrip.org. It goes beyond what the trucker mode on Cotrip is. It really gets into like freight specific routing and maps and things like that. But we're also putting out here in the next couple of weeks a regulatory guidebook. So from say the late 80s to about 2016, we would put out a regulatory book every year for oversize and overweight. To be honest, it was copy and paste of the regulations is what it really seemed like. But once we moved everything digitally online and had a website, and then the print shop at the old CDOT building shut down, we stopped producing that booklet. And from that day forward, everybody's been begging us to make another one. The booklet in the past was focused simply on oversized and overweight, and this new booklet will include legal trucking as well, if you will. We always call permitting extra legal. But your general trucks it'll have information on where you can park, where all the chain stations are. It'll detail the move over law. It'll really get into the Colorado specific stuff. If you're a truck driver that's running all 48 lower states, every state has different rules, and that's not exaggerated. They are significantly different. And so having a regulatory book that tells how Colorado does that will help us out, but it'll also help us continue to communicate through social media and things like that, because the booklet is basically each page is a different issue or a different law. And so we can pull that single page out, put it on social media and say, must carry chain law. Here is the detailed information about that. Or, a focus on hot brakes and not having runaway trucks in the summer. Here's a one-pager on that. And so we will have a little announcement about this book, make sure everybody has access to it. And then as new issues come up that we need to communicate, we'll continue to add to that book. It'll kind of be a living document as we move forward. So if you have any questions about that, we're always happy to send those out. One of the avenues in which we're going to try to get this information out is we're going to send them to every police department in the state. So if they come across a truck that's struggling, they can pass on that resource, and it can either be printed or just accessed digitally. And so I think it'll be a good tool for truck drivers to use while they're in Colorado. And finally, if you have any questions, we don't have a big team in the freight group. It's Erica and I work on the planning stuff, and then we have 3 permit writers and a permit supervisor. That's the whole team. And so if you had questions, you can contact us directly or do the CDOT freight planning inbox. All of us will get it then. So if I'm out or Katrina's out, somebody will make sure that they can reply back to your questions. Does anybody else have any questions in here? Yes, please.
You mentioned the left lane restriction. I'm not familiar with that. What is it?
So in the past, there were some regulations around commercial motor vehicles over 26,000 pounds cannot use the left lane on I-70 in areas that they're likely going much slower, or it's really tight, like Glenwood Canyon. Those moved from regulation to law in 24, and there's 6 locations now on I-70. You'll see big stamps, if you will, on the road, but also signs on the side of the road that say trucks are restricted from using the left lane in those areas. It's not continuous on I-70. It is in those selected areas. And a lot of times in those situations, there's 3 lanes. And so they're not restricted to the right lane only, they're just restricted from using the left lane.
And then have you identified any parking lots in like Silverthorne or on the bottom of Vale Pass on either side or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Silverthorne did this on their own. So I really appreciate that. So you got Copper Mountain and Silverthorne are both have implemented emergency truck parking locations. I do have documentation on all of that, but the traffic management, traffic incident management teams, the TIMS teams, they did that work. I give them a huge round of applause for that. Really saved me a ton of time too. But they just sent us the solution instead of us having to go out and pursue it. And so, yes, there are I-70 solutions in place when it goes beyond what's normally there. The other thing to check out is in 2024, or 2025, I think the legislator asked us to do a chain station study. Apologize. It was part of Senate Bill 24-100. We turned it in 2025. Check that out, because one of the things that was required in the chain station study was for us to list all truck parking, private and public, on the I-70 corridor across the state. And we have more truck parking spots than even I anticipated, well over 1,800. And so sometimes they're not where you need them to be, obviously, but we do have a decent inventory of truck parking availability. And there are some new locations, Love's, Golden West Fuel, that are adding truck parking to their facilities when they build. Obviously, Love's is a truck stop, but those are great opportunities, and kind of what I was talking about. The private sector solves it better than we can, and so having them come in and build new facilities is usually where we're going to get the best number of additional truck parking spots added. And so, and then you got places like Glenwood Canyon that have areas that that aren't open every day, but if we are shutting down for snow, they open those up. And they're not a massive number of truck parking spots, but 20 here, 30 here, 24 here, that can really help go a long way. Yes.
Hi, Craig.
Hi.
I would just want to let you know that I have an MPO community that will be reaching out. I didn't know if you're aware, but the SS4A for this NOFO actually had a priority for truck parking as part of the NOFO. And so I don't know if you've been receiving letters of support for NOFOs for truck parking or not on other applications, or what the state's interaction has been with your communities to help support that priority as part of that safety grant. But I'm going to be connecting you in an email, so maybe you could provide a future letter of support for one of the communities who wants to submit an application that would touch on truck parking as well.
Absolutely. And I just found out about the NOFO that came out. The state's not, we're not available. We're not one of the people that, or one of the parties that can get that funding. So it wasn't on our radar until recently. One of the best ways to get additional support is to reach out to the Freight Advisory Council. Obviously, Gary Beatty can help us there. To get the Freight Advisory Council, the FHWA and the federal government seem to continue to have this focus on the Freight Advisory Council. Ours, I think, is very good. So it's good to have their support as well. Obviously, if we would work it through the process for CDOT's letter of support as well. But that's just a secondary area to get a letter of support. And obviously, the freight industry, truck parking is a challenge, because most of the time when you're having that discussion, the people that it impacts can't be in the room. They live in another state or something else, because the folks that are driving in Colorado every day, they go home. A lot of the trucking industry goes home. They don't need a place to park. So you're really solving this problem for visitors, for people who are coming through and bringing us our goods or passing through the state. And so a lot of times we don't have enough detailed information. So I think it's really good for us to work together as a community to solve that.
And I think some of the local communities may not know what your truck parking plan says. Like, if you have a lot of main streets are state highways, and there might be opportunities where you guys have identified, hey, we know we need truck parking on the state highway, but maybe our local community could be the applicant for that grant application to help promote, whatever that is in the freight plan. I'm just using hypotheticals there, but That would be, I feel like a great opportunity if they continue the truck parking in the SS4A for you guys to maybe look through that lens, the freight committee look through that lens on, are there opportunities for our locals to advance some of those locations and have them apply and CDOT help provide maybe the match or what you would have to do to maintain that anyway for those small communities that couldn't afford maybe doing that on their own. But I actually really had a real question rather than a letter of support on your map for the oversized overweight permit. I love that map. I love maps. I almost wish you could take the map on your next map on the restricted where you have, how does CDOT, when you're looking and you know you've got bridge restrictions, load limits, closures, do you overlay essentially, how do you work with your communities on letting them know that these are the routes through their areas that are issues? Or maybe the question is better is how does CDOT prioritize their bridge and tunnel enterprise funding for locations where you know these routes are impacted that are now going to have to redirect somebody 33 miles, which increases your greenhouse gas, your ozone, all of the emissions issues that we have, when you could maybe replace a bridge that would then shorten that route? How do you guys look at your priorities when it comes to that?
So 2 years ago, we developed a dashboard with all freight priority bridges. So we have 4 different prioritizations for bridge replacement, and freight is one of them now. That's new. That's something that the staff bridge team worked really hard on getting done. I couldn't be more appreciative. But there's several different ways that we do that. Obviously, we can always get better, but corridor planning is essential, like understanding if you're going to go fix a bridge from a freight perspective, say on Highway 24 east of Colorado Springs, there's 3 bridges that are weight restricted. Fixing one doesn't really help the freight program or moving permits on that route, because what about the other 2? And so one of the programs that we did years ago that's still finishing up now was the timber structure repair program. Many of the bridges that you're seeing on there were timber structures that by all other indications, they're pretty good. The timber that they were built with back in the 30s and 40s was really dense. It's good, but the stringers that hold the weight continue to crack with our freeze thaw cycles. And so what we did is our engineers came back and designed what we call sister beaming. You bring in steel sister beams, put them and kind of partner them up with the wooden stringers, and that extends the bridge life by about 30 years in most cases. And you can then improve the deck quality because you've removed that kind of flex that was there due to the deterioration of the stringers. And so that had 44 bridges in it, and we did all of them for $200,000 or less. So for under $10 million, we were able to make improvements on 44 structures. A lot of those are in the south, the southern side of the state, just by the way that, timber structures and when they were built back then. But those are the types of things that we're working on, those types of solutions, because exactly what you're saying is important. If we're not thinking that through, then we're going to have impacts on roads that are not designed for trucks, and we'll deteriorate the asphalt faster on those and things like that. And so we're really focused on fixing infrastructure on freight routes. And so to answer your question, where do you find it? All of that is detailed in our freight plan, probably more detailed than is needed, to tell you the truth. But it's we have dedicated freight routes throughout the state. Obviously the interstates, but beyond that, a lot of the major highways are freight routes. And so when we're talking about issuing freight funding to projects, they have to be on freight routes. Those projects are on freight routes because our priority is to keep trucks on routes that were designed to have trucks, because once we detour off of those, that's when a lot of the risk begins.
I was just going to add that I'm happy to take a look at your letters of support for that. And we're happy to send out that to other communities on the safe routes for all on folks that are interested on truck parking. So.
Yeah, it was the number 2 priority on that NOFO. So love to see it. All right. Any other questions? Thank you so much for the time today. And if you all need anything, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Craig. Okay, I think that wraps our meeting up. Our next meeting is June 4th at 8:30 on virtual. We'll see you all online in a month. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
For folks that are joining for the TPR Administrator Lunch at Brooklands, we'll be leaving in a few minutes. So feel free to mingle for a little bit, but we will be walking over to the restaurant shortly.